Monday, October 14th. Please call the roll.
Chair Moore, Alder DePula,
Here.
Mr. Homburg,
Here.
Ms. Fallett,
Here.
Mr. Stein,
Here.
Mr. Chapman, Mr. Grice,
Here.
and Ms. Fox is excused.
Thank you. I think we're going to stick with the order of business as presented. Is there anyone here to make an appearance this evening on something that is not on the agenda? Oh, sorry. I don't know how I skipped that. Approval of the minutes for September 23rd. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any corrections, changes, additions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Again, no change in the order of business. Is anyone here to make an appearance tonight that is not on the agenda? On an item that is not on the agenda? Okay. Is there anyone on, online, on Zoom? Okay, hearing none. We'll close the appearance section and move to unfinished business. Number 6A, public hearing on the request by Walter Wayne Development for approval of a zoning permit for a residential building with ground floor retail at 5105 Monona Drive, case number 2-020-2022. Welcome. The floor is yours. Welcome back. Yeah,
Yes,
either
please.
one. Either one.
Okay.
Yep.
Will I push this first?
I think it's
I think
good
it's
to go.
already
It's
on.
live, it's live, it's ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks. Hi, everyone. Randy Christensen, Walter Wayne Development. We're here to present back again 5105 Monona Drive, which is a four-story apartment building, mixed-use apartment building that we came back, or that we presented back in, excuse me, just get kind of a little bit of history to catch up people on it that aren't familiar with it. We came in August of 2022 in a public hearing, and also November of 2022 as a pre-hearing, and got feedback from Plan Commission members, as well as we had several meetings with staff and alders as well, and some Plan Commission member as well, to get some input on the project that we wanted to construct on 5105 Monona Drive. We had great input, all that, and we went through the rezoning hearings, and we got approval on the rezoning for it. And we just, at that point, with coming out of COVID, and also with the fact that we were seeking some TIF assistance, we are here today. It's taken us this sort of time frame to get back to you folks at this particular moment. So in your packet, and I'll introduce our team here as well. We have JLA Architects, who's our main architect with the project. Troy Jacoby will be running through some slides just to kind of brief you or give you, bring you up to speed as far as the project that we're looking to do. John Kastner from Vierbrecher is our civil engineer, who will go over any stormwater or any those kind of questions. Robert Proctor is the owner of the property, who we represent, with the desire to build this particular project. Our time frame is we would like to start next spring on this particular project. We feel we have everything. We've met with CDA a number of times, gone through that whole process, have gotten a term sheet from them. We're ready to move on that respect. A couple of slight changes with, not necessarily changes, but a couple of slight opportunities we have with the building. One is we're seeking, it was a 45 units that we were looking at. We're seeking 48 units. We had felt that through the market conditions that a number of the larger two-bedroom units are a lot tougher to rent out. And we figured to hit a affordability, we'd like to change those, a stack of those. It's not going to change the look of the building or anything like that. Just this, that particular stack of units are going to be changed to studios, which will hit a certain price point we feel that would serve the market a little bit better. And the other thing is we're in discussion Nothing imminent at the moment, but you'll notice on the first floor, the entire front part of the building on the facing Monona Drive is a fitness area. We're engaged with a particular individual, and he's also in the discussion with us on other projects that we own, that we're looking to acquire his services. He does, it's for the residents in the building. He will conduct classes, and then he'll also seek members from the surrounding community. Typically, it's walkable members that will be coming to serve or to use his fitness facility. He's done this. He's got 6 or 7 other facilities around the area, around the Madison area, and he really likes the Monona Drive location. Given its high visibility and potential bus rapid transit system that could be coming that way, we feel it could be a really nice fit for this particular project. It will have, it will be fob controlled on his part, where members will we're looking to potentially have a entrance from the outside, so they don't have to be coming through the building. They can come through the outside and park there. They can, the walkability or either bicycles that they could get to the facility in that particular manner. So those are the couple of things. With the additional units as well, it doesn't impact our parking. We still meet the parking requirements for the city of Monona. And we have some thoughts on how we're looking at, I know back when we met before, Mr. Homburg had mentioned about accessibility for those visitors coming into the building. And so we're looking at different systems where it'll either be a keypad or it'll be on their smartphone that they could get that one-time code access where they could come into the garage and park their vehicle and be able to have access from a visiting standpoint. So we feel that those technologies are there. We'll be able to utilize those particular sort of services for our garage entrances. With that, I'd like to introduce Troy Jacoby. Are there any questions for me? I hope I kind of gave you enough of a background information as far as where we're at and where we'd like to go with this. You guys have seen this project before. You've helped mold it, per se. So you certainly have provided a lot of great assistance, and certainly Doug Plowman has championed that for us through this process. So if there are any questions for me, either that or I'll let our architect run through some slides, or if you're okay with that. Okay. Troy, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen. If this plays nice. There we go. Well, that's interesting. Okay, I will get to, there we go. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Today I'll give you a brief overview of the project, and please interrupt if you have any questions or comments. On the screen is a proposed rendering of the project taken from Monona Drive. So here we're standing on the edge of Monona Drive looking to the southwest. And we use this as a kind of a cover sheet rendering just to kind of give you an overview of the project before we dive deep into the plans. But as was stated earlier, it is a 4-story building with 2 levels of underground parking, and those underground parking levels are accessed off this Gordon here that we'll go over shortly. In the interest of time, I'm gonna skip over some of these slides, go to the neighborhood context. Once again, our site is located on Monona Drive in St. Teresa. North is up, Monona Drive obviously north-south. And to the right-hand side of the page is the golf course. So great location on Monona Drive, great views of the golf course. And this long linear site lays out nicely for our units. So our units have opportunities for views across this beautiful landscape. Our site plan, same orientation, Monona Drive on the right side of the page, St. Teresa on the top. So once again, it is that 4-story building with the 48 units and 63 covered stalls. Along Mono Drive, we do have, as alluded to, we do have the activation along Mono Drive with the raised planters and an elevated terrace. And inside that terrace would be that fitness area. And then on the back side of the site, we're utilizing a little bit of an amenity space for the residents. We do have a dog run, and we also have an outdoor patio area. Very simple plan. I'll keep going. Oops, there we go. From a landscape standpoint, we have Veerbecker on the line. So John, if you want to take the floor and walk us through the plan.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. Appreciate being here tonight. I am a civil engineer with a landscape architect that works with me. He's not here right now, but I've seen this plan multiple times and we've discussed it ahead of time. So he was really working towards, creating bunches and creating a pattern to maintain, the aesthetic view of the building, and then also having kind of the covered area. If you look towards the Gordon Avenue, there's some patio area. I know in our comments there was some concern that there is a tree or a shrub that's kind of off onto the property line, but that I think we can work with staff there to see how we can potentially incorporate that still. We did assign a point system to this. There was nearly 750 points that we had got out of this site. And I believe there was some discussion about in the zoning application or zoning code, it may need some more. I'd like to work with staff on that. I think that this is a good plan, and that code kind of applies to above ground parking. And we do have parking, but that's interior. So I think there's some opportunities, or however we can work that out. But we are definitely willing to kind of work with staff and present or revise as needed. So that's how the landscape architecture plan is laid out.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. And later on, when we get to the renderings, John will jump back in and talk a little bit about some of our stormwater management plans, which include green roofs. So,
Yeah.
working our way to the lower level plan. Once again, we have two levels of parking. This parking is totally, for the most part, underground. And as you can see, you're coming in off St. Teresa. We ramp down. We have 34 spaces, as well as the associated mechanical utilities and refuge. As we go up, the parking levels are accessed from two different curb cuts, if you will. So the curb cut to the left-hand side of the page is for this upper level of parking, 29 stalls. And then on the right-hand side of the page, we have the fitness center. And once again, that fitness center is activating that Monona Drive. And along Monona Drive, we have an elevated patio that will have some doors that allow access, obviously, to that space. And then the entry sequence, entering the building, is coming off of St. Teresa. So we basically have like a split level entry. So as you come in through the vestibule, you're at a lower elevation. You have a elevator and stairs that bring you up to this higher elevation and provides access to the fitness area. And obviously that elevator will take you up through the stack of the building. Working our way to a typical plan. This typical plan just kind of shows the stack of units. The units consist of studio apartments, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. And as the massing of this building reveals itself, there are these unique steps in the massing. And here you can kind of start to pick up on those steps where we have some outdoor terrace spaces, as well as some green spaces. We'll work our way all the way to the top floor. Really, that stack continues as we go up. At the top floor, once again, we do step the building back. We have a nice rooftop terrace that has direct access to our club room and business hub. And here's, once again, this is that same rendering that we were looking at earlier along Monona Drive. And really along Monona Drive, we're anchoring the corners with brick. And so every corner of the facade is anchored with brick. And here you can see this brick starts to reveal itself with these steps. And those steps start to continue across the massing of the building. So we have a step for the raised terrace or the raised planter, the terrace itself. Then as you go up the building, we have these outdoor patio spaces that start to reveal themselves. The third floor unit has a great little patio space, great views of the adjacent landscape, as well as the amenity space at the very top where we step the building back at the club room, and then we have that wraparound rooftop patio space. And as we go to this more elevated rendering, you can start to pick up on those activated outdoor spaces. And John, if you want to touch briefly on how our stormwater management plan works with some of these outdoor spaces.
Yeah, definitely, Troy. We have 3 different spaces there on that St. Teresa side that are shown that have additional green space. But our main stormwater is on the top of the building. So we wanted to bring that down though in those kind of those patio areas to be able to enjoy a portion of those, because they're still a really nice feature to the building, in addition to being useful. Do you want me to continue talking about the upstairs or the main one, or stormwater, or
The floor is yours, John.
okay?
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk about it now, and if you
Sure.
have questions about it later, if it comes up again, I can elaborate. So, yeah, this is a really I don't want to say unique, but this is more common now that we're going with green roofs. This here we have a combination of a green roof and a blue roof, and that's to get our stormwater management per municipal code through DNR. We've done this a dozen times on a lot of Dane County buildings. Just the requirements push that towards this, and we've had great results in terms of how those get permitted, working with manufacturers to install those on there, getting membranes that fit, and it's the new normal. So
Great. Excellent. Thank you, John. Thank you. All right. And now I'm just going to finish walking around the building, and then we'll open up for any questions. We're back on Monona Drive. Now we're looking to the northwest. And you can see, once again, the building does step. And as the building steps, we start to introduce different architectural elements to the building to resolve those different changes in the facade. So here you can see that this second and third floor starts to become this wrapper of cementitious panel that wraps around and starts to frame that entry with obviously these beautiful floor-to-ceiling glass corners anchoring and accentuating those great views up and down Monona Drive. And then once again, we're same vantage point. Now we're just elevated, looking back towards Lake Monona. And as we move around to St. Teresa's, and here you can see how the building starts to address the street. So once again, this is St. Teresa's, where we have all of our connections, pretty much the majority of our connections. We have the connections, obviously, for access into the underground parking. We have the connections into the main lobby space, as well as a connection out to this outdoor patio space and dog run area. And here on the corner, once again, the brick theme is repeating itself. We're using the brick to hold these corners. And you can see this expression is a little different than the other expressions. Here it's a full 4-story expression. But we're still once again accentuating the glass and the views at these corners as well. And lastly, on the back side of the building. There's really no back side of the building, but it feels like the back side of the building. Here you can see how the building addresses the neighbors and how the articulation of the materials start to break down the mass of the building with the brick base. Once again, we're bringing in the cementitious materials here, so we're showing a cementitious fiber cement panel here, as well as a lap fiber cement siding material. And that really concludes our presentation. I'll open it up to any questions.
Mandy, is there anything else from your team before we close the public hearing section?
I can't, Robert made it through the traffic, so Robert Proctor, the owner of the property, is here in attendance as well, so, no, I guess I can't think of anything other than we're excited to be a part of Monona, and we look forward to working with staff and working with you folks through this process.
And I do see at least one person who I don't think is associated with an application.
Right. I was just actually going to ask if there's anyone else that wanted to speak during the public hearing portion of this on this particular development, including online. Is there anyone that would like to speak about this particular development during the public hearing section? Okay. That being the case, we'll close the public hearing and go to 6B, consideration of action on the request by Walter Wayne Development for approval of a zoning permit for a residential building with ground floor retail at 5105 Monona Drive, case number 2-020-2022. Doug?
Thank you. So as mentioned, the request here is for the development of a 4-story residential building with ground floor retail components at 5105 Monona Drive. Updated plans, 48 market rate residential units with 63 stalls of covered parking. This is the third time this request has been through the Plan Commission. 2 pre-hearings were held in the second half of 2022. And there is a TIF component to this. Negotiations are ongoing with the CDA, but as mentioned, there is a term sheet that is being discussed at this point between the two parties. As far as the zoning, the parcel was rezoned from retail business, which was its former zoning, to community design district, following city council approval in early 2023. This provided greater flexibility for the ground floor commercial component to the project, which we can get onto in just a second. As far as land use, this is it's currently vacant, but the future land use map of the comprehensive plan shows this as commercial use, and that is land used for retail, service, commercial, and office uses. The proposal here would be for market rate units, studios through to 2-bedroom units. The amenities would include a roof terrace, club room, business center, and dog run, as well as the negotiations with a potential operator for ground floor fitness center that would offer both as an amenity for the residents, but also offer memberships for non-residents. And this would have the impact as well of pushing the business center, relocating that up to the top floor of the building with the eastern views looking over the golf course. As far as the lot coverage, city standards require up to 30% of the site to be open green space. And the site has since been surveyed for these final materials, and just over 7,000 square feet of green space is open at grade, which meets the city standards, and it's 30.62%. Setbacks are not specifically stated for the CDD zoning district, but instead they're compared against adjacent uses. The proposal as it evolved did locate this closer to the adjacent Fairway Glen apartment building just to the north of here, which also had the impact of giving greater setback relief to Gordon Avenue as this sort of steps down heading to the west. The 2 curb cuts were mentioned on St. Teresa Terrace, as well as kind of the split level parking there. One element city staff would like to raise would be potentially with the fitness tenant, there may be the opportunity for greater pedestrian integration on Monona Drive there, sort of on the eastern face, again, differentiating the access points. I know that was sort of a challenge when it was to be internal, but here if there is to be a sort of a public-facing entrance, that gives an opportunity and does meet with the Monona Drive design guidelines as well, to sort of engage and interact with the street there as well. One other point to mention from a pedestrian point of view is that the applicant does propose the installation of a sidewalk within city right-of-way along the northern edge of the site, which does improve non-vehicular connectivity versus the current conditions. Parking, the applicant proposes 63 covered stalls to serve their 48 residential units across 2 levels. That leads to a surplus of 2 stalls for the residential units. And again, as the applicant had mentioned, this is well situated to take advantage of alternate transportation options. Madison Metro running north-south along the drive, as well as bike lanes along both sides of Monona Drive. The applicant does propose bike racks at the head of each of the parking stalls within the secure parking garage, as well as capacity for 5 bikes in the lower level with a dedicated rack. As it gets to the 2,200 square foot fitness space that is discussed and considered on the ground floor at this point, typically that would require 1 stall per 300 square feet of space, necessitating 8 stalls per city ordinance. One point to discuss here, of course, is sort of the differing tenants that would be coming, or differing users that would be coming to the space, many living in the building itself. Staff recommends discussion of some more bike infrastructure at grade, for example. All the previous mentioned elements would be secure within the building. Bike racks at grade, or potentially a B-cycle station or something like that, to allow folks to either walk or take to be able to use bikes to get to the facility, and limit those parking needs that would potentially be strained by this proposal. The visitor parking as well had been discussed in previous applications. As mentioned this evening, the applicant is looking to an app-based solution for that, and staff did view sort of the adjacent streets as well. There is 2-hour parking just north of St. Teresa Terrace on the northern side of that, as well as opportunity for evening and weekend parking along Gordon. So certainly, while not ideal, it's something that is there should it be needed. The architecture and massing, it's a U-shaped building facing St. Teresa Terrace with varied floors, sort of lowering the impact of the scale of the building, softening some of the massing there. It is still in excess of 90 units per acre, owing somewhat to the unit mix, which is trending more towards studios, efficiency units, and versus the 1 or 2 bedroom units, as well as, of course, the modest size of the site itself. It does, of course, provide additional housing options on an infill site, and while still being able to keep in keeping with adjacent properties, specifically Fairway Glen to the north. High-quality materials are stipulated in the Monona Drive Urban Design Guidelines, and they're shown throughout here with floor-to-ceiling, ground floor to 4th floor brick on the corners, as well as varied panels to sort of break up the massing as well. As far as stormwater, we're joined this evening by John Solon from Strand. He was part of the team that reviewed this. Their review letter is included, and I'll pass to him in just a second. The lighting, the applicant does propose exterior lighting of 14 fixtures at grade, as well as an additional 10 on the 4th floor roof terrace. It appears that this is in keeping and very soft and mindful of the neighbors. No value of greater than 3-foot candles near the property line, which meets city ordinance, and the brightest light being on the eastern face there on Monona Drive. The landscaping, the city standards do count towards either surface or covered parking stalls, and those would be 15 points needed for every parking stall. With the 63 here, the applicant is short by just under 200 points. They do propose 4 canopy trees, all located within the city right-of-way, as well as a landscaping plan that does surround the entire perimeter of the site. Certainly something, given the site constraints, it does look like they've put together a good landscaping plan. There are also a lot of perennials there that do not get point credit that we have seen in the past that still add to the landscaping, as well as, of course, the green roofs on the 2nd and 3rd and the top floor of the building. One thing to discuss is there is a pet run on the Gordon Avenue side within those setbacks. I think it was just a typo on the plans, but it appears to show a 6-foot wood privacy fence shown, whereas a more appropriate 3.5, 4-foot chain link type fence seems to be more in keeping, so just something maybe to clarify. These plans were shared with city department heads, and a point of comment would just be from Public Works Project Manager Brad Bruin, who deals with city stormwater, just had some comments about maintenance and things like that. That was before he had seen the Strand review, but I think certainly if there's any more discussion of that this evening, I think that would be warranted. This, I believe, is the first of the type in Monona. There may be others in the county, but would still be the first in Monona. With that, the recommendation from staff is approval with findings of fact and conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. With that, I'll open it up to the commission.
Should we go to John?
Sure. John, you want to
Thank you.
jump in first?
Yeah.
Come on over.
Close to you guys too. I don't like too bad. Well, thank you for having me in. John Sullivan with Strand Associates. As Doug said, we had the opportunity to perform a review of the plan drawings and package that was submitted to us on September 13th, 2024. Well, that was the date of the plans. We received them on September 25th, 2024 for review. All in all, it looks like a really nice use of the space. Exciting for the city. As a good plan said, there certainly wasn't anything that we saw that really stood out as an item of concern. I'm going to try to go through this letter really quick. Again, some items are big, some items are little, but nothing was a showstopper that we saw. So again, we reviewed a package delivered to us on September 25th, 2024. This package included the stormwater report, the rezoning drawing package, the zoning permit application, and the letter of intent. The only outstanding items that we request for review on the final submittal would be a list of drawings. It's always nice to have like a title sheet and show everything that's included just to make sure that those are all in hand. The demolition plan, obviously there's not much out there today, so not too much to demolish. There are a few electrical easements that run through the site. We'll just ask that the proper documentation is submitted for vacating those easements. On the north side of that lot, there is an electrical easement. There's a lot of actual pedestals and electrical boxes that your plan drawings look like could be in conflict with some of those boxes with your sidewalk that you're going to install. We'd recommend that if you are going to be in conflict, that you show that conflict on the demolition plan. We also recommend that if you can't avoid conflicting with those, it might be a good idea to modify that sidewalk location just to save you guys from some headaches if you have the ability to move some stuff around. The site plan review, which was sheet 3 of 5. We had to consider the same dimensions for both your radiuses for your driveway. This could have just been a typo, but it looked like they're about a ½ foot off, so just make sure that those driveways are the same size. Show the gas lateral, so obviously this building will have a connection to the gas main. Not quite sure if that was didn't seem like that was on the plan drawings that we saw. If it's in a location that's going to impact some more street, curb and gutter, we'd like to see that on the plan drawings. Kind of going back on that sidewalk, the current layout that you guys have for that sidewalk that conflicts with those boxes, it looks like it's going to be hard to get an ADA compliant ramp. It's just kind of close to everything on the corner. I think there's an opportunity to potentially shift that sidewalk a little closer to the building, save yourself some headaches with having to maybe remove more of those boxes, and have an easier time making that ramp ADA compliant. We'd also ask that you have maybe some grades and spot elevations on that, just to make sure, since again this is going to be a city sidewalk and it's going to be in there right away, so we want to make sure that it's complying with those ADA standards. And then lastly, on that site plan, items 4 and 5, just make sure that your sidewalks, your public sidewalks, again, your sections of sidewalks that are going through your underground driveways, they're probably going to be thicker, or they're going to have to be thicker per city code. So make sure that you have typical sections or some language about the size of the sidewalk, the thickness of the sidewalk you're proposing, the base course thickness underneath that. That also goes with the asphalt. I know your plans had a light and heavy asphalt designation, but what is that? Just telling us like, okay, what type of mix is that? What dimension, what thickness of that mix over what base? So if you could get that included, that would help clean up. And obviously the city has a ordinance that makes that pretty cut and dry on what those dimensions should be. For the grading and erosion control plan, sheet 4 of 5, Again, I had some information on that connection to that sidewalk for ADA compliance. So currently that driveway, that underground parking driveway, the way I interpreted the grading plan, it looks like everything from the curb to the apron to the sidewalk to the ramp all drains into the building. I mean, I think that's okay. A lot of times on some of these other site plans we've reviewed, they at least try to get a little bit of grade breaks. So that first apron might drain back to the road with the thought that, you know, stormwater from the road isn't going to escape the curb line and go into your underground parking. There's not a ton of upstream water here getting to this. But you never know. I mean, there is some, and that should be looked at. So if you can avoid it, and it might mean even looking at some of your finished floor elevations,
Yeah.
it's a good practice to not have everything dump into that underground parking,
Oh, I
because it
agree.
could definitely be headaches. So, so look at that. The sidewalk on the west side of the building where that dog run is, it goes just to the curb there on that side street, which is a little odd. It might make more sense to maybe wrap back up to the sidewalk that's going on St. Teresa, to have a connection point there instead. I see people maybe, you know, coming out with their dogs and coming back and forth there, and you right now kind of just have a dead end to put them on the street, so that's something we noticed. Another item, and so the vestibule, the area for that lobby, it didn't look like the site plans had a carriage walk that we saw. I'm not sure if maybe updated plans have that. We were just thinking, you know, with people moving in, the elevators there, delivery trucks coming, that you're just gonna have people walking through that grassy terrace. It'd probably be nice and be standard to have some type of concrete terrace area, so, you know, they could walk through there, so we'd recommend putting that in the plan set. The fence on the dog run that Doug was talking about, it looked like it was a little close to the property line. I'm not sure, Doug, if there's any setbacks for it being a side yard. I know that's probably coming more from you guys. From my review, it almost looks like it's right on the right-of-way line. It's really close. It might not hurt to give yourself a buffer of a foot. If there's ever sidewalk that goes into that street, you're gonna be right on top of it. And if you got a little room to push it over, it might be nice. So the back lot swale, the drainage swale for stormwater on the south side of the building, it's defined. It looked like there was a little bit on the southwest corner where it broke out into the adjacent property's driveway there, which wouldn't be ideal because we want to make sure we keep all that stormwater on site. I think you can achieve that by lowering that swale, getting it a little more defined. It looks like you could lower that inlet that it all drains to, the catch basin elevation, and get a little bit deeper swale and keep everything in that swale on site there. And then we just said that, you know, maybe a few more spot elevations too to understand that. I said maybe earlier because it looked like that from the contours, but having a few more spot elevations and grade arrows would help clarify that you guys are keeping everything on site. We're almost through it, sorry.
Nope, it's all right.
So the utility plan, that was pretty straightforward. Just little notes here and there. So this one, you know, the trench drain for that underground parking, you know, it's either gonna be, I imagine, a sump pump or gravity. I didn't see a lot of information on that. I might not have been looking at the right sheets. It looks like you might be able to get it gravity drained to an adjacent storm sewer. I don't know what the city's, you know, what the city's stance on that is, but not knowing what you guys were planning to do with that, we can't even really jump to that conclusion yet, or that evaluation. So just, you know, that's something that I think always gets maybe not overlooked, but kind of last minute put together. So, so maybe providing some information on how that trench drain drains out. You have your utilities on Gordon Avenue, your sewer and water connections occurring. We always just ask a little more information on that. So, you know, what type of water main or water lateral connection you're proposing, if you're gonna live tap it, if you're gonna shut down the main and cut into it, you know, size, material. The other thing with that water main is it looked like on the plan drawings and the existing site plan that there was a valve just north of where you guys were gonna connect, very, very close. It might be the old service for the old building. I didn't dig that deep into it, but you guys might wanna have your engineer just just look into that a little bit and see what's there. I'm not saying that you want to use that, but if you're connecting almost in the same spot, you might have problems in the field making that connection, and the city's probably gonna want that out of there. Just make it cleaner and get that out of the ground too. Because if that old thing's there and something happens to it, you're subject to some water shutdowns. So, the sewer, again, a little more information on what type, class pipe, for that sewer lateral connection. The rooftop, that was something we were looking at. So the green roof, the discharge pipes for that, kind of where those are connecting in. We didn't see that, and I don't know if you're gonna have under drain from downspouts or what the idea of how to get that underground in those heavier events, because I imagine it doesn't hold everything, and that that it's going somewhere. So having some additional information on that would be something that we'd be looking for. And then a little tiny one at the end, just, castings and stuff like that. If you could keep it out of the concrete, if you have a little room in your site plan to move some stuff around. I know it's your private sidewalk and maybe it's reaching on me commenting, but it's nice to get those in green spaces if you can, because then you don't have to worry about that cracking. So the landscaping plan, I think Doug had one of the presenters commented about a little bit of encroachment in the right of way, which we saw. We were just noting that, we saw that. I don't know if it's gonna be something that the city wants or doesn't want at the end of the day. And then my last comment on the site plan before storm sewer is the refuse area stood out to us a little bit looking, and I know this is kind of getting into the underground and maybe reaching a little bit, but some of these buildings of this size, they have the underground parking or the underground trash receptacles. Some have the outside trash receptacles. We weren't sure if, I don't know if the truck's going down there. Just thinking about it, just throwing that at the architect and just, maybe it's something a real easy answer, but to us, it's just how is that trash gonna be removed? Is it getting rolled out? Is there room for the truck to go down there and get that? Is the truck gonna be overhanging the street or the sidewalk to get that? It's a pretty steep grade down, so, if it hasn't been evaluated in deep detail, I feel like we've ran into a few of these where we almost find problems during construction or after implementation of some headaches with garbage collection. So just, I guess it's just a warning type of thing, just to look at a little bit more. And then lastly, the storm management and drainage. The applicant, the stormwater management plan complies with the city, Dane County, and state of Wisconsin post-construction stormwater management requirements. The applicant indicated it is providing a 6,000 square foot green roof in order to meet the green infrastructure requirements, which is great. That's exciting to see something like that get implemented in the city. We just ask that there's some additional detailed drawings for this green roof system, partly because it is, kind of new to some of these people that are reviewing, and also having that stormwater maintenance plan, and I'm sure I'm overlapping with some of the stuff Brad said, but just having a maintenance plan, a maintenance agreement on how that's green roof's being maintained. So, sorry, I was a little long-winded with some of that. I do appreciate the opportunity to review and present. I think it's exciting. I think it's a sharp-looking building. So, with that is our comments, and we just recommend that you address those comments with a letter and I guess implementation of items where appropriate. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Anybody else before we go to the commission? Okay,
I think so.
great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Then, Chris, I'll start. John, with you?
Wow. Okay. Try not to play this long.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure I will be. First, I want to say thanks. It was nice to have that review that whoever put together and sent with us, because it's been a couple years since we looked at this, and it was nice. And I was here for all those meetings, but it's still nice to read it all and refresh our memories a little bit. So I think that was great. Totally off the cuff comment is if it's going to be called Monona Pines, I didn't see any pine trees on the site.
Across the street.
Oh. Green roof. I heard tonight it's also a blue roof. So you're gonna hold water, correct? For a period of time?
Yes, that's correct. Yep,
Okay,
it is.
and as far as the design of it, is this one of the regular manufacturers that advertise blue roofs, or is it something you're designing? Do you know?
Yeah, we work with manufacturers both on the kind of either a tray system for the green roofs or a medium of a certain width, and then also if you don't need that certain filtration, you can use the blue roof as well.
Okay, you've decided on a tray system?
We have not made that decision between either a tray system or some sort of a medium up there, so.
Okay.
I think
Well-
it's gonna end up being like a 6-inch tray or 6-inch kind of soil system.
So more of an
But-
intensive, so mostly sedums then you're expecting?
I believe that's how those end up working out, correct?
Well, without thicker medium, I think that's all those, no?
Not very much medium.
Yeah, it's not a lot of medium. So the reason I'm asking all these questions, number one, I don't profess to be an expert on green roofs, but I was fortunate enough to sit on some committees where they wrote the standards for Dane County, and so I know enough to be dangerous. How's that?
Sounds good.
We toured a lot of green roofs, trying to figure out what was going on, and the comments we got back from the people with the tray systems, they're really easy to work on, they're easy to replace, easy to get around with, but they have a lot of dye down around all those edges of the trays. They're always real dry, so they were kind of wishing they'd have not done that. But what I'm going to suggest is when you design this thing, one of the things, no matter what you do, they take maintenance, okay? They take a lot of maintenance. And to get them going, they take maintenance, but then once you think you've got all the weeds out and it's growing well, their experience has been between the wind and the birds and whatever else, they continually bring in weed seeds, so you will always be maintaining those green roofs. So they said the one thing you should look at, number one for establishment, is make sure you got some water up there. Because although they're a green roof, this last month and a half where we had no rain, it would die off, especially if it's just being established. And then the other guidance they were very strong on, this again is from the people that had these roofs and worked on them for a few years, is to have somewhere up there to stow away some tools, because you need to get them in and out. Have some easy way to get your stuff up and down, because you will be weeding and pulling stuff in and out, so you need to be able to get up and down. And if that parapet wall is not tall enough to afford protection, then make sure you have some tie-offs when you get towards the edges. So above and beyond the stormwater, which I'm sure will get well reviewed, those are just some things I learned through the whole thing, and I wanted to pass along to you so you at least think about them. The water, I think, is a real important one, because we do have dry spells, and you don't want to have this investment and then have it die. The roof water eventually goes down into the storm sewer, correct?
Yes, correct.
Right. I mean, your blue roof, you're going to hold it there for a while. You hope to get some evapotranspiration and have some there, but you're going to have excess water coming down. And so my one question is, you're tapping your storm sewer and all the ones around the site into that inlet on Monona Drive. That's only a 12-inch lead. Is that a big enough lead for that water?
I mean, that's part of the, just having, we need a little more information on that.
Okay.
We don't know yet. I mean, it looks like, is it all coming to that one? Right now, it looks that way, but with not knowing how everything's draining out of the building,
It looks like it's coming to that one
That's
inlet,
what I would-
on the back of that
yeah.
one inlet on Monona Drive.
I would agree, yeah.
Okay.
But we'd like to,
So I was just curious, and then I saw on the plan now, I have it tabbed, but some of your plan shows 24-inch pipe going north and south. I gotta think that's gotta be a typo, isn't it? On your stormwater plan?
I'll have to double check on the size or what that's going there, but yeah, that does seem relatively large.
It's on,
correct.
Yeah, it's
5 of 5,
5
it
of 5.
shows 24-inch going north and south out of the 12-inch lead, which makes no sense whatsoever. And then I see you've got an 8-inch proposed storm sewer that's going to the building, so I'm assuming that's adequate to cover the roof water?
Correct.
Your
Yep.
calculations have shown that? 'Cause if
Yeah,
that-
and part of that, the roof water that you were talking about, that blue roof is set up to hold the water and release it.
Slowly, right. Okay,
More slowly.
so I'm trying to answer my own question. So if you've done all the work and that 8-inch is adequate, then that 12-inch will be more than adequate in that inlet. There's some roof or street water going in there, but if we're only adding an 8-inch plus that little bit of green area, I'm not concerned about it at all. If that's what you're doing, and then that gives you, you're getting your detention, your site detention up there too, I take it. Yes?
Correct. Yep.
Retention,
is.
not detention, retention. Detention, sorry, detention, not retention. Okay, I beat that in the ground. So that swale you talked about for the south, this site's always had issues, the site to the south's always had issues with this site running all their water over there. We talked about it at the earlier meetings, and I think it's great what you've got planned. Now all the roof water's taken off, and now we've got that swale there, so I think it's a great solution. I know where you're talking about for that southwest corner. I think maybe more information might make it become okay, because it looks like that might almost not end until it gets in the right-of-way, at which point it's just gonna take through the right-of-way at an angle to get over to that curb, which if it does that, that's okay, because there's no inlet down on that far west end. So they've got to get over the top of the curb. So they've got to soften it out. So I'm thinking, take a look, but it may just work that way, and it'll flatten out by the time it gets there, but as long as we have just a little more information for the neighbors' parking lot and stuff to the south, so we're just not throwing water and throwing icing on their parking lot, that we should be fine. But I think if it goes across at an angle in front of their property to get to that curb, to get to get the grade they need, that should be fine. So that's my 2 cents on that. This is just, I apologize ahead of time. I have random notes all over my paper, so this is going to make no sense in any order. So my next note I've got here is we've got an example in here of cast stone on the architectural details. Is that just for the brick cap? Is that all that is, or what is it?
I think so, Chris.
There's no cast stone on this building anywhere, is there, other than perhaps the brick cap?
I think that could be Bob.
We have the architect on here.
Yeah, yes, correct. If there's any cast stone, that would be used for just a sill condition.
Okay, that's what I thought. When I looked at the photometrics, I thought it maybe wasn't lit really well at some of the major areas. So that's something you should look at, especially around your entry and things. And I know, driving not as worried because we do have street lights there that weren't taken into account on your photometrics, but I would look at the entrance, and it's not at my area yet for talking about, but since I'm talking about that entrance, I agree to the point where we have to talk about this and get some solution for that underground parking. That entrance to the underground parking shows that it just comes right in off the road. You absolutely don't not want street water coming off the road. And you've got a really short throat to do this. So the one thought I had was where you've got your sidewalk at the proper place in the right-of-way all along there, perhaps at that driveway, we could slide that sidewalk right over tight to the curb. And it could be there right at your curb opening with a little pitch going out to the road, and that would keep the water out in the road. And then from there, you can have your transition point to get into the underground parking. But at least that way, you can keep any street water. Because the harder it rains, the harder your underground parking is going to work to clear itself. And the last thing you want is one of these big downpours or that water overwhelming your trench drain. And I agree. It'd be nice if you can get it to go gravity. And if you can, that's fine. We allow a certain square footage to go in untreated. So it would seem to me if there's any square footage at all that needs to be taken care of untreated, if they can get that to go by gravity, I would let it go. They could probably put inserts in that trench drain for oil and grease, things like that, but we could get that water out of there. But I'm worried about that being a problem, that water going down into your underground. So does this make sense to you, what I mentioned, where we just run the sidewalk, or the one thing that you'll have snow removal on the sidewalk, but it's right on the driveway. And then you need to kind of coordinate that with where he's talking about your carriage walk, but if we have that coming right up the driveway, somebody's gonna come up there, right around and up, and it might solve that carriage walk issue also, because they come in driveway to the sidewalk, because the sidewalk is basically the driveway, it's tight right there. And maybe it would pay to have one somewhere else just to keep the moving van away, because the moving van's gonna go right to it, so your carriage walk idea is not a bad idea. My biggest concern about this whole drainage thing is that underground parking getting inundated. So, it's amongst you all to solve, but I think where my building, I'd probably try to do something like that. And you might have the city snowplow trucks throwing extra snow on your sidewalk there, but you know, it's also your driveway, so you're going to have something more than just mechanically shoveling it. I mean, you're gonna have some way to clear that driveway out. So, I think you should consider that. And speaking of that, you know, you show asphalt. Are you seriously going to have an asphalt paver come in for that short little throat? Or are you going to pour concrete while you're there with concrete? Again, it's up to you.
Yeah.
And but you're
I'll
going to
have
have.
to
you're
look,
gonna-
I'll have to talk with,
You're-
you know, our,
Well, I know what it costs to mobilize a asphalt paver to do that little bit, and it's probably going to be similar to having concrete all the way.
totally, I don't disagree at all.
So it's,
Yeah.
again, it's
Yeah.
up to you,
I don't
something to look for. When Doug mentioned our asphalt specs, we have them, it doesn't have to be that, those are just minimums. What we have is minimums for somebody coming in that says, I'm gonna put 6 inches of base and 2 inches of blacktop, and we're protecting owners from that. So
Yeah.
if you feel you need a heavier spec, that's fine. And if you can have a professional designer sign that you don't need that heavy spec, that's okay too. Our ordinance says these are our minimums, unless your professional designer tells us otherwise, it's not a maximum.
I would think it'd make more sense to have concrete.
It's up to you, it's something when I'm going through
Yeah.
it that I noticed.
Nope, I appreciate it.
And then I would suspect there will be a condition on here that talks about the concrete in the right-of-way. Our minimum specs are 5-inch concrete, 6-inch of base, and then for your drive aprons and sidewalks, 7 inches of concrete and 6 inches of base. That's our minimums, and they're in the right-of-way, and there we will decide how much goes in
Okay.
there. A bigger item, can you remind me what the setback is from the bloom, from the property line?
I think it's 14 feet.
14 comes to mind.
14,
14?
yeah.
Yes.
So
Because
this
that's
is
also like
16, this is
Fairway Glen.
16, so this is right out there then with Fairway Glen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because I was looking at that, it seemed a little close, but then it would match Fairway Glen. For me, that south elevation's still a bit plain. And normally that would be up against another building, but what we have there is Food Fight. And Food Fight's not leaving, I don't think, for a while. And, you know, all you see is a sea of hardy plank, or whatever type you use, but hardy plank with a couple different colors in there, but I'll back up. It's a really attractive building. I like it a lot. I like the three other elevations a lot. It's just that elevation, and you've got the good brick corner, which is in front of Food Fight, but that whole part above the ground level brick is visible as one big side as you're coming northbound on Monona Drive, and it's a little plain compared to the rest of your building. It would seem to me something could be done there.
Okay.
I'm not telling you what, but and I'm anxious to hear what other commissioners think. But for me, I think that was a little bit plain. The dog run fence, Doug mentioned chain link. I would think for an application like this, we'd look more like an aluminum. The aluminum, you can get pre-done sections, but a nice aluminum powder-coated fence, usually they're black, but there's other things. But I would expect something like that for the dog run. Certainly not a 6-foot cedar plank fence
Okay, okay.
in a location like that. Dumpsters. Maybe you could tell us, I think that's an important aspect for how this building's gonna function. How are you going to empty those dumpsters? Maybe the architect could jump in here. I'm looking at you, but that's because you're here.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you, I don't blame you.
Now, you're going down a relatively steep grade, so you're not gonna be able to wheel them up to the street.
Right.
And if you go down there and you just think you're gonna hook onto them, the point is you got some headroom issues there as you're coming down that. Can you wheel it up? So perhaps architect, I saw you tried to get on, I talked over you, I'm sorry.
No, oh, no, you're fine. Yeah, you're right. The intent is that we would need a mechanically assist so that we can get those dumpsters out of that lower level. So whether that's some kind of UTV or some kind of motorized dolly, that is yet to be decided.
Okay, that's a little unusual, so I guess details on that back to staff would be good. I think that's going to be a little issue for you for the life of the building. I have a question. I don't mean this to be rude or anything, but being so tight on that south side, how are you going to build it?
Well, we leave that to our contractor.
To build that with the balconies coming out and everything, I just can't imagine how you're going to build that.
So those balconies are usually coming, we did this on a project on the far west side, where they come out and they construct them, not physically on the building, they construct them on the site. And then they lift them up there with a little small boom, or,
How about all the siding and digging the hole in that hole and getting in there to backfill it and all that?
yeah, we've built on tighter sites. We've certainly built on tighter sites, and we've been able to navigate through, and they've been able to work through it, and I trust that the contractor will be able to do it. I mean, we built one on Park Street that actually had no room, hardly any room, and they were able to construct and navigate through. So they do a section at a time, you know, they do a part of the building, and then they'll move on to the next part of the building so they can navigate around it.
I would agree you're pretty close to no room. Landscaping, it sounded like you're able to do a little more. One place it might be nice is to have a tree or two along Gordon. There's no canopy
We
trees
can
at
do
all.
that. We can do that.
So I would look to that,
Got a
because
couple of pine trees.
pine trees. Touche. That's the only place they can grow and not hit the building. But that, again, that's something for Rob, I'm sure will cover that, but it would also help you. I know your canopy tree counts down, plus your points. And again, you have a lot of things there that you don't get points for that do help the building. You've got perennials and some grasses. You've got some really good things there. So we can look at that and say, you know, that helps.
Appreciate that.
That helps going through it. The fitness center. I'm going to start with the pedestrian access. I'm going to differ from Doug. I think it would be really difficult and would ruin the look of your building to try to get some kind of a handicap ramp or even a stairs or something out from the front of the building instead of going around the side. You've got a really good looking front. The grade-wise, you're quite a bit above the sidewalk. So you've got the patio, then you step down to the planter, then you step down to the sidewalk. That's a lot of grade to take care of. And you've got a great look when you've got the brick face planter there and then the brick face patio. You've got a gorgeous look. So for me, I think it's a nice look, and I'm okay if you have to go around to the side. Other people may differ from that, but I think it works well. Visitor parking, is there any way when you have this app that they can let somebody that's coming in for the fitness center get in with that same app?
We're looking into that. So we're looking into that
Okay.
to see what kind of access that the fitness person will have is
Right.
in line with our current tenants.
See, in my mind, I consider this an amenity to the facility first and foremost.
Yep,
So
that's
I'm
the way we
assuming
look at
all
it,
your
too.
tenants will have fitness center privileges.
That's the way we look at it, too.
And that's the way I see it. So this is almost an auxiliary use to allow some public, which I think is
Yep.
healthy, I think it's good, and I think there's areas there, but if there are classes or things, and during the day when people are gone, you have some capacity, or you don't have a lot of visitors, it's just a thought that you have some ability to allow some visitors in that parking, because our parking standard, which you've met, includes visitors.
Yes.
You know, I don't expect it will be filled up by all your tenants.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay. Landscaping and right-of-way. You know, I just think that's towards the back. I think at first I thought, well, you know, normally you build out a project like this, you build out sidewalks on all the sides too. But to force you to build a sidewalk on Gordon when there's nothing else there, doesn't seem to make sense. We have a lot of arguments about sidewalks in Monona. And eventually, we're gonna have them a lot of places or not. But to have that one strip, I think it would be more efficient and cheaper to have it done when we decide to do Gordon versus make a developer piecemeal a piece here and a piece here, and it gets assessed back, sidewalks. So there's an assessment policy. I don't think it would make sense to require a sidewalk along Gordon right now. So when I see the landscaping, what I'm trying to get to is a little landscaping in there. I think it softens the project, and will it get changed a little bit when and if a sidewalk ever goes there? Probably. If we master plan this community from the start, would we put a sidewalk where we have multifamily? Probably. No, but to me, I would be fine with it. And I have my disorganized notes, and I think I'm through most of them. I'm sure I'm going to find something I didn't talk about, but I think it's fair to let somebody else start talking.
If I may, I did just pull up the Bloom plans and just confirm, closest point, the setback there is 17.17
So I
feet.
thought it was something like that. The inlet, sorry, I said I was done. The inlet in that sidewalk, you know, I had the same impression right away that you have when I looked at it. And then when I thought about it some more, I thought, wow, you know, it is going to be clean, and it'll be kept clean, and in the wintertime, the water will probably drain there, so I think it's a horse apiece. I think it's a dealer's choice on that one. I think it's nice to have an inlet that's going to drain, and you do keep the sidewalk clean, so the more I thought about it, the more I thought I have a good argument both ways.
Where's the inlet in the sidewalk?
Let's look at page,
Manhole, there's a
pardon?
structure.
Catch basin.
There's an inlet, and there's an inlet in the sidewalk. It's 505 of the Veerbecker plans, which shows the storm sewer layout, and the
Yeah.
one inlet's right in that south sidewalk.
That's not an inlet though, is it?
Well, it says storm manhole, but I'm gonna assume they're gonna let some water in there. Maybe it's just a, I don't know. I'm with Strand. They don't have enough info here for me to know.
Sure.
So that's the one we're all talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Chris.
I reserve the right to raise my hand later.
Corey?
Sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
I agree with Chris that I really like the look of this project. I think you were very thoughtful in addressing some of the comments that we had back in 2022. I do remember us talking about that south elevation and having that large space. That was an opportunity to do something a little bit more graphic or visual. So, you know, if you think about it and can come up with something, like the second building, there was a similar blank expanse, and then they put the name The Current in like a artistic way on the building. That was something that they chose to do. So just think about what you might be able to do to make that look
Okay.
attractive. The biggest question I have is about the fitness center area and that front patio area. I actually really like the idea of having the business center up on the 4th floor, the business center and club room, because it does have that view, and I think that's a really nice amenity for the residents. But then that patio area was a part of that in the first place, and now it's a fitness center. And so I guess I'm just thinking about, how are you thinking that the residents are going to use that patio space, if they're going to use that patio space, and they have to go through the fitness center to access it? And so from that perspective, it just doesn't seem to make sense unless there was a different access point to it, which there isn't. except through the fitness center.
Yeah, so one thing I failed to mention at the beginning is with regards to the Biz Hub, the reason we decided to move it up to the upper floor is we've had really good success with the Biz Hub in our larger projects. In our smaller projects, the Biz Hub is unfortunately not used as much, to be perfectly honest. So that was the genesis of moving, part of a Zoom room or a conference area up on that community room area. As far as what you're asking, Kareen, in the front there, I know that from the potential user that we're talking to, that may be an area for a little bit of outdoor engagement for some of the people that would use the fitness area, where they would have that opportunity to maybe go out and cool down or something during one of their sessions or something of that nature. So there'd be some engagement with that patio use from a fitness standpoint. The residents, I mean, they're going to have access into the fitness center, so they would have access to that patio area anyway. And as far as being right on Monona Drive and the foot traffic and so forth there, I mean, we feel that the more of the outdoor activity will probably happen upstairs in the community area with that outdoor patio area up there. So it's more like, from an aesthetic standpoint, of a look for the front of the building, is primarily the look that we're after with the engagement of the fitness center. So I don't know whether I completely answered your question.
No,
but
you did. I guess I was just, if you hadn't thought about it, raising if you're going to build something, what is the purpose of it? Is it going to be used? How is it going to be used? How does it add to your project? And it sounds like the fitness potential is a class-based fitness, not necessarily equipment-based?
It's both. It's both.
Oh, it's both,
Oh, it's
okay.
both, yeah. It'll
All
be
right.
both. We've got equipment that'll be going in there, as well as a little open space for fitness, or for a yoga class or something like that nature. But it'll be both.
Okay.
It'll be both.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if this is a 48-unit apartment, I don't remember what the unit mix was, but, 60
Yep.
people may be living
Yep.
there.
We're
Maybe
thinking of an
35 wanna
infrared
work
sauna.
out.
Infrared sauna will be located in the fitness area. Infrared
Okay.
sauna will be located in there. We're kicking around the idea of a plunge tub, could be a possibility. That seems to be something that, from a holistic standpoint, the gentleman we're working with his other facilities, it's real popular. So we're thinking of those particular, incidentally, the infrared sauna is a big hit at all of our apartment projects. That thing gets used a lot. And that, so this one here will definitely have a infrared sauna located in the fitness area.
Okay. Well, I was just bringing it up because if there's about 60 residents and then they open it up to others, just trying to think about where they would park, where would those additional people park if they're driving? But you said it's going to be mostly walking, and that's the...
He will canvass around the area.
Okay.
Around the perimeter of the building and around the neighborhood, as far as potential members that he would look to bring online. And there'll be small classes. I mean, there's not like there's going to be 30 people that are going to
Okay.
be in this particular class. It's going to be, a half a dozen potential classes that half a dozen people in a particular class.
Okay.
So it won't be like it would be, 25 people in there at the same time. We've never really even seen that, even with our large 200-unit project downtown. I've gone into that fitness area, and I usually just see a handful of people there at a time. So it gets used intermittently, a lot, but not by a volume of people all the time.
Okay. The other question, sorry, just give me a second. I agree that there needs to be a bike rack outside, so I'm not sure what a carriage walk is, but is it just additional pavement area where a delivery truck can pull up?
It's just like a paved, that's the
Just from the
area
sidewalk
between
to
the
the
curb
curb.
and the sidewalk is paved.
Oh, okay,
So like a sidewalk between the sidewalk and the back of the curb.
got
So-
it, okay. All right, and then I think the landscaping looks amazing. I think you did a great job with that. And my only other question is related to, I think it's just the way that the drawing is, that back patio, that's at grade, right? It's not raised up. Like, when I look at it, it kind of looks like it's raised up, but I think that just might be the shrubs.
I think you're right. I think it's just shrubs going around that patio.
Okay, all right, that's good. That would be weird otherwise, but, okay, that's all I have.
John?
Well, first of all, good evening, Mr. Jacoby, and good evening, Mr. Kastner. Thanks for joining the group.
Hi, John.
I appreciate the articulation of this building, the design. I like that the U shape opens towards St. Teresa Terrace. I think it's got nice use of materials. I like it that you're not maxing out the property like a lot of developers would. And I think the garden areas add a nice design element along Monona Drive. That being said, the architect referred to the back of the building, and then he said, well, there really isn't a back of the building. I would agree with the comments on the south facade. That's a tough one, because I appreciate that you articulated the west side of the building, which faces the neighborhood, which is probably very important, which a lot of developers wouldn't have. So I appreciate that, but just the repetition of the very small balconies, and just take a look at that. It's tough because you're up against a one-story building that could turn into a three-story building one day, who knows, right? So, but if you would take a look at that. I'm intrigued by the unit mix. I assume some type of market study was done, but to have 30 of the 48 units be studios,
Isn't that crazy?
62%.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't think I've seen a project anywhere near that.
That's the way, that's what we've done with our, will be our 6th project. I mean, that ratio is usually around 60% studios, 30% one-bedrooms, and 10% twos. That's about what it comes down to. Our project downtown, I mean, the studios are the first ones to be leased up. And what we're trying to hit is an affordability standpoint. I mean, we had, and I appreciate the comment, John, but, you know, we had 10 two-story, or 10 two-bedroom units in this project, and we just felt it was overloaded because the larger units are the last ones to rent out. They're just tough.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
And so
but I would see a lot more one
we saw an
bedrooms
opportunity
typically.
there with a stack of two-bedroom units that we were able to keep the integrity of the building, doesn't change anything with the building, and we just made those into studios. And it fit perfectly.
Okay. I mean, you have to rent it, so. The roof terraces are really nice, but when you look at the plan, I'm not sure who owns them. Like, there's a number of units. One has 3 units hitting a roof terrace, one has 2 units hitting a roof terrace.
Yeah.
Do they all get them, or one of them get them, or?
No, there'll be some division on it,
Okay.
John. I mean, we've looked at that, and in fact, we kind of looked at, those, on that second floor, those roof terraces, because they were just so big.
Yeah.
And we just felt, okay, well, let's take advantage and put some green area on there, too. So in the roof terrace will be split between some units to be able to utilize that. We did that on our west side project, where we had some larger roof terrace areas where we split it. We put a divider, and it worked out just fine.
Okay. So the fitness area, or the fitness center, when I first looked at this, knowing that there's 48 units, I assumed it was a private. I mean, it's so large
The
for a
fitness
building
area-
of this size.
Yeah.
If it wasn't run by some private group, which it sounds like it will be. Will they have a-
We really hope that's.
Will they have a sign? That'll be,
Yeah,
probably? Okay.
there'll be some signage on the front of the
But
building.
they don't have any parking.
A lot of it's foot traffic. And a lot of it
Well, I
will
know a
be-
lot of it's foot
Yeah.
traffic, but isn't there a requirement that a retail business in Monona has to have parking?
It would typically be one per 300,
Yeah.
one stall per 300 square feet. I think with this, the recommendation would be a finding of fact or something sort of allocating this out, that there is the surplus, with the ratios, it's 2.5, it's 2 stalls, 2.5. That is surplus that could go to commercial, but I think the detail needs to be there in terms of how it would be accessed and things like that. So certainly, I think it would be quite unique in the city to have something effectively with none, or sort of proving that out. But I think some of that is how much of the foot traffic, how many of the customers or users would be from within the building or
So-
from without.
So if I may, I mean, your parking requirements actually help. Actually help. I mean, because if we were.
Could you say that again?
If we were.
Speak to
if we
the
were
mic.
just building, if we were just building this property, we would do just 1 for 1. 48 units, 48 stalls. That's what we would do. But the fact that you've got this parking requirement actually helps the situation here. Because it's not gonna it's not gonna be fully parked all the time. There's not gonna be 63 vehicles in that parking area at one particular moment. So, I mean, I think, the fact that you've got these parking requirements really help us. Help that particular use. And like I mentioned to Corinne, am I pronouncing it right? Corinne, sorry.
It's okay.
Like I mentioned, the classes will be smaller. I mean, there are going to be half a dozen, 8 people at the most that'll be attending some of these classes. And it's going to take time for that to evolve. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time to, for that whole situation to evolve.
Okay. I would agree with the comments on the trash. I don't know how they're getting trash in.
Yeah,
this building.
that,
And I want to take it a step further. I would recommend that you enclose the trash room in the parking lot rather than keep it open, just for smells and things like that.
We've done that before. We'll probably do that.
And then I don't know how trash gets to the trash room, because there are no trash chutes.
No,
Show.
this type of building, we won't put a trash chute in.
So people have to walk their trash down? Okay.
No different than taking it to the curb.
Well, steps, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I did have concern with the term blue roof. I know all about the trays and the green roof and do it all the time, and that's a good thing. Make sure you have water up there and a hose that's long enough. But the term blue roof is a little, for a project like this, I assume the structural engineer is aware that you're, okay. That seems pretty rare, that you would have to go that far.
Well, we gotta meet the stormwater requirements.
I did have the comment about the raised patio in the back. I didn't know if it needed a railing. And then the dog run wasn't shown in the renderings. That's okay. The balconies all have this white-looking material around the, I'll say, the floor of the balcony. I assume those are prefabricated.
Yeah, they are.
balconies. So what is the white material?
White material, where are you seeing this?
Oh, it's on the front, the very first rendering. There's like a
Oh,
foot and a half,
oh.
like material around the
Oh,
perimeter of the balcony. What is that?
Troy?
It's very nice. Hope it
It looks like
stays.
it's some sort of fascia material.
So John, you're looking at the first rendering from Monona Drive?
Yeah, I'm looking at any rendering. Yep, I think they all show
And
the
it-
same
and it-
deal.
Yeah, the idea is that, yes, it would be a prefab balcony system, and obviously it would be the painted rim board, if you will.
And then the
So
bottom
it'd
is
be
white.
metal.
It almost appears
The-
white.
You're right, the bottom would not be white, you're right, the bottom would have exposed members.
Okay. So if I could make 2 recommendations on the design, and don't get offended, Troy.
I won't,
I would like to see an overhang over the community room facing east. I think that top looks a little bare facing Monona Drive. I'm not asking one for around the whole building, but just that, over that nice roof terrace area partially. And I would also recommend that somehow we try to hide the elevator overrun if we can. I don't know if that's doable, but
Up on top.
yeah. That's all I have.
Well, if you look at I mean, if you look at this one elevation, you look down below at this other elevation, I think once you're standing down on the ground, you won't see that elevator overrun.
Well,
I mean, it's just
your
maybe,
rendering shows it.
yeah, you see a little bit of a bump, I
Just
guess.
saying.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Thanks, John. Rod?
Well, it's good to see this back. I can't believe it's been since
I know.
2022.
I know.
Like,
I know.
but I do recall being excited about this development, and I like what I've seen. I think it's a good-looking building. I would agree with now that John mentioned the overhang. I think that is a good suggestion. At least partial coverage up there could be a really nice addition. In regards to the south elevation, I mean, seeing some brick or something on that corner, on the southeast corner, I could see being beneficial. Moving down the side, I'm kind of less concerned, personally. But I think there is opportunity, especially because there's that big gray wash next to the floor-to-ceiling windows, and just kind of pulling that up on that corner, I think could be a nice addition. I had questions about trash, but I'll let that be. The green roof, or the blue roof, I would agree with the comments of making sure that there's water up there, and then maintenance and accessibility. I had a question on the utility connection for the water and the sanitary sewer. You're obviously going to put in a patch there, and just from recent experiences, I was asked to, since you're going 3/4 of the way across the street, would it make sense to go all the way across the street? I'd be curious to hear other people's opinions. You've done a lot of street work in.
They'll have to get a permit for, and our Public Works will end up doing a mill and overlay just like you do in Madison with a 50-foot patch. And if you go 3/4 of the way, you do the patch the full way.
Okay, it seemed like
It's no different than Madison.
would make sense here. I would agree with, I don't need sidewalks on Gordon, especially at this time. I had a question on the parking, the lower level parking. You have some compact stalls identified, and you have 8.5-foot stalls, it looks like, and 8-foot stalls. There's 4 8-foot stalls. And then there's a big, a striped area of seemingly 4-ish feet. Is there any reason you couldn't make those 8.5-foot stalls? Or is there a reason there's that striped area on the north face of that wall? Maybe there's programming happening on that wall, but if not, it would make breathing room for the compact stalls a little better.
Yeah, I'm sure Troy is taking very good notes on all of everything that's being said here, so
Okay.
we can look into that.
Thank you.
In regards to the landscape plan, I think you've done a nice job, good plant selections. I like all the native uses. I think you should look for a substitute for the sugar maple. It's historically not a good salt or urban tolerant tree. I think there's a little bit more durable species to choose from. And I think there's opportunities to add some canopy trees, maybe in the cutout on the north face of the building, but certainly on the north west corner of the building. But be sure to steer clear of that overhead electrical that's going on over there as well. So with the plant selection, the north side of the building, I would have some recommendations, and that there's a lot of really good plant species. I think they work better in plant communities versus like a thin row of like wild ginger, I think is used in one example. What I'm getting at is there's not a lot of winter interest that's going to happen on that north face of that wall with the ferns and the things that are just going to die back right away. And I think getting some more taller, some of the upright grass species that could have interest, and then even some woody species, winterberry or aronia, chokeberry, things like that, or placing some of the red twig dogwood, maybe dwarf varieties if you're worried about height over there. But I think I think it's gonna be kind of barren, especially in that U shape on the north facade. That's gonna be dark. The north sides do get a little bit of light, but those won't because they're tucked back. And I don't want it to be just kind of a die-out spot, so. Looking at that, I think could benefit the project. If you're regrading that swale on the south side, kind of look at the locations of what you have planted there. Yeah, those are my comments for now. So.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Patrick?
Thank you. Let's see, I agree with the comments from John and Chris regarding that south facade. Also, I like the input regarding adding that overhang. But also, talking about the blue roof, have you considered a pickleball roof? Because you'll probably lease that place in like 10 days. But I had a question about the EV charging rough ends too. You were going to do 10% of the spaces would have rough ends, and you wouldn't consider doing more than that, considering it looks like, you know, the trend continues in that direction?
So we'll, for lack of a better term, we'll plumb it for other EV
okay.
systems, but we'll only put in the 10%.
Gotcha.
And our experience is that, you know, we've done this with some other projects that, it hasn't caught on just yet.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Is...
You know what I mean? I mean, eventually it'll get there, I
Mhm.
guess, but it just hasn't caught on just yet. We've gone, put those in, and they sit vacant.
Gotcha. The other question about the fitness space. What happens if that doesn't work out? What's the thought on what becomes
Well,
of
it's
that
an
space?
amenity for the building. It's always been an amenity for the building.
Mhm.
It's an amenity for the building, and the residents in the building.
Gotcha. So even if the business, the gentleman or the person that's doing the fitness
Yep.
training and classes
Yep.
isn't there, it'll still be a fitness center?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay. Thank you.
you bet.
Brandon?
So I want to echo Chris's comment about the photometric. I felt that there were several areas where the lighting level seemed low, not just at the entry, but just a number of spots adjacent to the building in general. I also agree with the comments about the refuse. You know, you've got flexibility.
I've heard it loud and clear.
Yeah.
I totally get it. We certainly don't want to have any issues with that. That's for darn
Yeah.
sure. We got to figure it out.
Just with the flexibility with the number
Yep.
of parking stalls.
Yep.
No, why you even have to have it on the lower level. I also agree with Chris's comments about trying to keep the street water out. I'm more thinking about freeze-thaw conditions. Given that steep grade, I think there's a big safety issue with just ice development, during freeze-thaw cycles. So anything that's going to help keep that ramp dry all year, I think is going to be really important from a safety perspective. I think that I actually did want to go farther than you, John, about like the canopy, yes, over the rooftop terrace, but just the general theme of the building, activating more of that roof line in some way, shape, or form. It is great that you continue to do the setbacks, but especially, I actually thought on the north side that it would look nice to continue that around, and I guess on the south side. So I was more on offense about it. At a minimum, yes, the fourth floor terrace for sure. And I echo both John and Chris's comments about the south side, just the repetitive nature of it, et cetera. Some way that we can add some architectural variety to that southern face. One concern that I had is I kept looking at the parking at I guess it would be the west side. The west side of the parking, I'm thinking about the lower level, because there's the ramp that is to the upper level, and we have a similar sort of steep grade, and I was trying to look at the elevations and understand what the head clearance is going to be at the west end, the northwest end of that parking area, in that ramp space, what the clear height is in the lower level parking. Because of what the, what the elevation is. The elevation is uniform
Yeah,
throughout.
yeah.
You do have this staggered ramping of the second floor parking area, and I think that in the midpoint of that parking where you get that second ramp, it's less of an issue, but for those 4 stalls or what have you,
Mhm.
I couldn't piece together what that
Yeah, so.
head height is.
So in defense, I don't want to, in defense of our architect, I mean, we haven't even gotten to construction drawings yet on this. So there's a lot of things that we got to vet out in terms of elevations and be able to address some of these concerns that you all are bringing up. So, I mean, it's definitely something that will take the next level. Even with this gentleman next door to me, I mean, there's a number of things here that we need to address once we get into that full document of construction stuff. And then, we'll go through that whole process with staff in terms of meeting all the suggestions that have been mentioned here tonight.
Yeah, yep. The roof's been talked a lot about already. You guys are thinking about maintenance to keep the plants going. Just water finds a way.
Yeah, I know.
Putting water on a roof and having water sit on a roof, it just sounds like from a building warranty perspective, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So just thinking about, that's my intuition about that. I also share John's instinct. I mean, you are the one that's got to rent them, but just the studios, relatively speaking, being the first ones to go always. In general, I do think that it's an attractive building. I think that it'll be sited really well. I really like Chris's comments about the fact there weren't any pine trees. Maybe you can find a way.
We haven't named the building yet. It's just that,
Okay.
that's just, at least I don't think we have.
But,
That's just the entity that owns the property. So.
those 2 ramps, the one ramping down, concerns about ice during freeze thaw.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, the one ramping up, really the clear height inside the lower level of the garage for the stalls in that area, I think would be sort of some concerns. It would be good to see. I guess leave that for staff, but just, that's all I got.
Thank you. I would just add a couple of things, and I have a question. I don't know, Monona Golf Apartments? No, that was not my question. I completely concur with the trash. I definitely agree with Rob as it relates to the landscaping on the north side. And I would only add that the north side's going to probably get worse before it gets better in terms of what kind of light it has, because, just to the north of you, those 2 buildings are likely not to be there. They've recently been sold. I'd be surprised if there wasn't some new buildings there with additional height, which would make, again, the light on the north side even more challenging for the landscaping. Then I would definitely concur with the south side as well, and I would just mention, as an addition to that, the articulation and materials that others have discussed, that it seems to me that side, not unlike Fairway Glen, also has a really nice view of the golf course. I mean, because the building itself is situated the way it is, you've got the advantage of 3 sides of the building looking across Monona Drive to the golf course. And, if I'm going out to a patio and I'm looking at all gray on any side of me and the whole thing, I mean, I would feel like that would be the last places that you would rent, and they wouldn't be very attractive to people, because it looks like the backside when it's real now. So, and like I said, I would just mention that they'll also have a view, and I think it's worth looking at that. And then my question was related to the green roof. Probably nobody here would be more excited to see a good green roof in Monona. But I'm wondering, at the very beginning of this presentation, you mentioned that you've done multiple green roofs around town. You're you've had good experience with it, and we're obviously a little bit skeptical in terms of the maintenance and care and system use. Can you give us some specific examples of addresses here that you've successfully done green roofs with?
So we have done green roofs on our project downtown,
Okay.
which is 179 West Wilson. It's up on the 10th floor. We have a dog run that's located up there,
Okay.
and we have plantings up there, and we have a drainage system up there, because you have to meet the stormwater requirements for downtown Madison.
Yeah.
Our project on the far west side, which is over by Market Square, we have on the second floor there, terrace area, the tray system that we installed there.
Okay.
It actually looks great. I mean, and it really, they did a really nice job in installing that and putting that in. So those are a couple of the examples that we have, and I know John Kastner from Veerbrecher, you know, they do other developers' projects as well, and they've done a number of these green roofs throughout the city and other locations around probably southern Wisconsin.
Sure.
So it's just, it's a way of being able to meet some of those stay-on requirements that we're after.
Mhm. Great. Great. As I said, I'm thrilled about it, and I mean, if it was possible to.
Yeah. We mow the grass up on top of that, up on top of the roof up there. We mow the grass, and we got an irrigation system up there that we sprinkle it and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So if, I mean, I know this might be a
Yeah.
long shot, but if one of us
Yeah.
wanted to go take a look at it.
I know the tray system's pretty hardy. It's pretty hardy. Once you get it going,
Yeah.
you get it going,
Yeah.
you got it beat. I
Yeah.
mean, then you're okay.
Yeah.
That's, you know, it's not necessarily a challenge. That's the task we have to make sure it performs.
Okay.
So.
Great. That's all I had. So, does anybody else have anything else for me or to cruise on? Nothing else for tonight. Okay. So, my question to you all is, do you have the feedback that you're looking for? Or do you have clarity around the feedback that we've given you tonight?
It's actionable tonight.
I know it is.
Okay.
I know it is, but I'm asking that.
There's a lot here to absorb, and I'm hoping that Doug has taken proper notes and my team has taken proper notes to cover everything that we've done here. I'm guessing, you know, this is my first go-around with Monona. So other projects that we've done, there's always a sign-off process that we go through with the city. And I know this gentleman here had some comments as well for our civil engineer. So I'm hoping that all of this is kind of gathered, so I know, you know, systematically what we need to click off.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, with that, I just, you know, in terms of overall clarity, I didn't know if you had any other questions of us, and with that, I'd be happy to entertain any kind of action, any kind of motion towards action this evening. Chris?
I'd make a motion, but I guess I'm going to re-ask her question. But she's trying to say, do you have anything from all the comments you've heard that you want to say to us? Something that you guys...
Well, other than we'd love to be in your community, and we thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
I get part of the south elevation, and we'll look into that. The overhang on the fourth floor, we've talked about a pergola up on top up there to you know, bring that out a little bit more. So in the trash, I've heard that loud and clear as far as what we need to do with the trash. And I'm sure our team will look at, you know, those elevations with that steepness of that first entry coming into the building, and how we're gonna address that. And this gentleman here mentioned a lot of information here in his report that Veerbrecher will be looking into, as well as with our architectural team.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know me, Robert Proctor, I own the property. I live on Gateway Green, just off of Frostwood, so I drive down Monona Drive every day. so I do care very much what that south side looks like. I'm not very good at visualizing things, so I appreciate it.
Get that mic down there. There might be somebody watching.
Yeah, and I think that the building's come a long way from back when it was first presented in 2022 or 2021, I don't even know when it was
22.
first presented. But, and so really appreciate all the comments. I think that they've been, most of them have been incorporated and have significantly improved them. So take these same comments in the same light, that they all, again, I'll tell you, I'm terrible at visualizing things, but nothing sounded, everything made sense that you said, so appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, with that,
Okay, I'm going to make a motion. Don't be offended by the number of items, it's just that's the way we do it here.
That's all right.
Okay, so I'll move approval with conditions 1 through 5 as written by staff.
There's findings of fact, too.
Oh, yeah, I got started next, I rewrote those. Finding of fact number 1, and I've got notes on top of notes. Okay. Finding of fact number 1 will read, the proposal is below the required, no. No, we're gonna get rid of finding of fact number 1, because we're gonna have a condition that we have a revised landscape plan. Finding of fact, the new finding of fact number 1 will be, and I'm rewriting what you had in the beginning, Doug. While the fitness center will be open to the public, its primary use is as an amenity to this building. Thus, the commission has granted an exception from city parking standards for this proposed use. Now, conditions. 1 through 5 is written by staff. 6, in there, Doug strike towards the end, approval by the city's consulting engineer, make that approval by staff prior to approval of stormwater erosion control. 7 is written. 8, on the end of 8, write that without permits. And that one speaks, the applicants required to stage all their construction equipment and materials for operations within their own site, not on any streets. So it'll read on any streets without permits. 9 through 15 is written by staff. We will strike 16 as there's no building there. 17, I've rewritten. Additional bike parking, including racks at grade, shall be included to accommodate additional visitors with final approval by city staff. Does that make sense? You get that? Okay. And now, I know these won't make sense numerically since I struck one of them, but I'm just going based on the numbers that were there. So 18, that any walks and aprons in the city right-of-way shall be 5-inch concrete walk with 6-inch base or 7-inch aprons, and drive aprons, and sidewalks with 6 inches of base in the driveways. 19, that we redesign the sidewalk and the drive that's going down to accommodate the better grades with approvals by staff. 20, the dog run fencing shall be decorative, let's say decorative fencing for the dog run, approval by staff. This is redundant with what you have, but 21 will be full details of the green roofs come back for approval by staff. 22, that revised landscaping plans come back for approval by Plan Commission. Again, a numerical issue because I had a 23 which is already covered up above, so I struck that. 24, that any existing lateral surveying the site need to be abandoned at the main. That's the condition you usually have as boilerplate. I just didn't see it. 25, the final trash layout and accessibility shall come back for approval by staff. 26, that the revised southern and eastern elevations come back to Plan Commission for approval. And 27, the revised electrical plan come back to staff for approval.
Second.
Yeah, second.
Thank God she's in there.
Okay, I don't know if you have any questions on, there's a couple things I asked to come back to Plan Commission.
I heard that.
The elevations, that's important enough.
The south
issue-
elevation.
Well, south and eastern.
Okay.
Eastern is where John had talked about doing something there. So those elevations.
The
come back-
overhang.
I'm sorry?
The overhang area.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yep.
yeah. Yeah, and the landscaping, there seemed to be enough of a thing where we should just come back. Honestly, our best counsel in landscaping is sitting here in the Plan Commission, so, you know, he's the gentleman that will probably look at it the closest,
Okay.
but we've talked about a number of things. Neither of those are issues that stop you from doing whatever you want to do down the road. You know our intent,
Yep.
you know what we're talking about, so you know what the expectation, what the impact may be to you. I don't think I had any more by Plan Commission. So, do you have questions on all those?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
What I changed, Doug, I changed the one just for approval by staff, I always do, because the consulting engineer, obviously, you're gonna be looking at it all, but he reports to you and you decide when everything's satisfactory to you. So it still goes through you.
So just a point of protocol, I mean, so with our engineer, our civil engineer, can they have obviously they're gonna be in discussion with
Absolutely.
them? and-
Absolutely.
So that way we all understand what's going on? I mean,
Absolutely.
okay, great.
The
great.
experts talk to each other.
Good, good, good.
Absolutely, we would expect it that way. The reason I added on without permits on 8 is because I know in Madison, when they have trouble and they come back, can we rent this spot of the right-of-way for a period of time to build this building? This is a really tight site. I know downtown they do it, I don't know what the city charges, but they can rent part of that. John might not know, but they can rent part of that. So I said without permits, and if Public Works decides that, yeah, we'll block off this part of the road, you can rent it or something during construction. to
So
build this
Chris,
building.
I mean, I've not gotten a full logistics plan on, building this. And it, we feel we get enough room, but we may need
Yeah,
to,
that's
we
why I
may
put
need
it
to
on
use
there.
part of, okay, I appreciate it.
So, otherwise, this is, you can't do it.
Okay,
And that way,
perfect,
if they decide to give you a permit, you can do it.
perfect.
I struck B-Cycle because that's a big deal. B-Cycle decides where these things all go, and we can't tell a single applicant, a single building that you should maybe try to get a B-Cycle. Be nice.
They're hard to
but-
get.
Yeah, they're hard to get. They're real hard to get, and they charge now. They never used to, they charge.
They're very hard
So
to get.
that's why I put down the bike rack and the facilities approved by you, but, if they get B-Cycle, I'd love it. But that's.
It doesn't,
why I
it doesn't preclude us from not looking into it.
Of course
I
not.
mean, we'll look into it. I mean, because it's a nice little spiff for the building.
Yeah, and my last comment on the motion, which doesn't really hit that, but I forgot to mention before, I really appreciate all the amenities you all put in this building. So we talked about this in the very beginning. This building will live or die based on 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and the amenities make all the difference.
It's a tenant
Anybody wants to
retention.
rent a new building.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be in it,
Yeah.
but you have to have something there to make people
Yeah.
want to stay, and I think you've done a really nice job with that. And listening to all things we've said, you've got all these different patios. I know, as John mentioned, they're bigger than one person needs, but that's an amenity, man. Those are things that really make a difference in this building. So including putting that space up on top. So
Appreciate it.
I appreciate listening to all that. And you did a good job and hopefully make a difference to you.
Fantastic. So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks very much, you guys. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
That takes us to the next item, item number 6C, and I'm going to excuse myself.
Item number C, public hearing on request by Morgan Conway Melvin for approval of a conditional use permit for a new accessory dwelling unit at 4545 Lincoln Road, case number 2016-2024. And Doug? Or to the applicant, or is the applicant sitting? Okay, gotcha. Welcome. Doug, do you want to do this first, or do we want to have them? Well,
I think certainly the applicant's welcome to kind of present, I think, a few elements have changed.
Sure. So during the public hearing request, is there anyone here to speak about this at all that didn't get a chance to sign in, or online, or no?
I do see one unidentified person on Zoom, just with a generic username, so.
User 4382?
That's the one.
Gotcha. It might be an Android. No. User 4382, are you here to speak about anything that's on this agenda item? If not, you don't have to say anything. All right. Would you like to describe what you're here for this evening?
Yeah, so hi again. I was here earlier, I guess we were all here earlier this summer, so hopefully it's still relatively fresh in your minds, but we're here hoping to seek approval for the construction of an ADU on top of our garage on 4545 Winnequa Road in Monona. So most of the materials that were submitted today are the same as previously. The only new thing is the rendering, which kind of is just meant to show some of the exterior finishings, the clay tile roof, which will match the roof on the main house, and then also address the access and exterior lighting, which I know were two items that were brought up in the original meeting that we were supposed to address. So you can see the lighting on there and the access. I do just want to point out that it isn't to scale. It was really difficult to kind of show the grade of the hill and how the building is built in. So in the rendering, it definitely shows about 7 stairs, which in reality, it would be about 2 to 3 if we went that route. However, as Chris pointed out, another really solid option would be to just do kind of a flat deck off to the side. That would be a really small grade as well, so we wouldn't even need to do stairs. Just wanted to point that out. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Doug?
Thank you. Could we actually go to the consideration?
Oh, sorry.
The next
Yes.
item? Thank you.
Moving on to consideration of action on request by Morgan Conway Bauman for approval of conditional use permit for a new accessory dwelling unit at 4545 Winnequa Road, case number 2016-2024. Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you. So the request here is for a 720 square foot addition, second floor of the existing detached garage, 4545 Winnequa Road. For the use as an accessory dwelling unit, would allow the applicant to join her father on the property and provide family support maintenance of the existing property, as well as appropriate living space designed for Mr. Bauman. And the detached garage would also be renovated as part of this project. Previously came through for a pre-hearing early July of this year, and since, as the applicant mentioned, renderings have been provided to show the materials. Property on Winnequa Road is zoned single family, and the request this evening is being reviewed as a conditional use, which would be similar in character to the uses specified as permitted within the district. And again, accessory uses are customary incidental, subordinate to the principal use, and would be the conditional use would be subject to the use standards, general use performance standards that are included within the staff report. A little bit different than normal, but one of the elements here that is worth pointing out from the 2016 comprehensive plan is under the housing section, there's discussion of the potential to increase housing quantity and type by allowing conversion of larger lots to small lot, single-family home subdivisions. Similar or sort of adjacent, I would say, to this type of proposal. And it also supports creative housing proposals that bring new and diverse housing types to Monona. So again, just something that's relevant to this application. The staff report really runs through sort of the details here, general use performance standards, permitted and conditional uses. I won't run through those. What I would say is the commission this evening should consider the proposed ADU against those use standards, evaluate if it's similar in character to those permitted within the single-family district. I will point out this ADU does require a zoning variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. It did come through in July, I believe it was July of this year that it came through the ZBA. That request was tabled. That will be picked up again later this week. They were looking to hear from the Plan Commission about the use specifically before rendering an opinion on the dimensions, which is what they will be considering. There's some background here as well. There is currently one ADU permitted within the city. It was permitted in March of 2014. The conditions are included within the staff report for reference, and when we get to the recommendation, a lot of those elements were modeled on that. So the proposal, 24 by 30 foot detached garage, would be the second floor, set into the natural grade of the property. The square footage would include an open plan kitchen, 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom, and the application letter explains that there would be minimal barriers for access to this as well. Since the pre-hearing, the renderings have been included with the exterior details, proposing the orange lay tile roof to match the main house, white fiber cement siding on the upper level, and then the concrete exterior of the lower level would be enhanced with Valletta stones as well. The plans were shared for staff comment with city department heads, and Public Works Director Stefani did mention, as we get to the utilities, some discussion with MMSD, some of the connections there, and some of the elements that were discussed. And that is recommended as a subsequent condition, sort of working with the city, if our engineer needs to work on that, just to make sure that's all appropriately sized. So the recommendation this evening is to consider this, to discuss the appropriateness of the proposal. Should the commission deem it appropriate for the conditional use, a finding of fact and conditions are listed in the staff report.
Thank you. So we'll open it up to the commission, and we'll start with you.
No comments.
No comments?
Nope. I think it's great. I have no comments.
Okay. Rob?
Similar, yeah. I think based off our last discussion, it's come forth basically unchanged, so no comments.
That's good. John?
No, I appreciate the use of the materials that you're proposing. Clay tile roof.
Yeah, so the main house, it's actually, he can speak to it a little
Yeah.
bit better, but it's actually better than clay tile roof
Okay.
because it's much more sustainable. I think it has it lasts usually more up to 30 years, so it looks exactly like clay tile, but I think it's asphalt, correct?
Asphalt coated metal.
Yeah, so it looks exactly like clay tile, but lasts a lot longer.
Okay. No,
It's not as heavy,
it's gonna,
Yeah.
I
but it looks great.
think it's gonna increase the property value, which there might be subsequent issues when you do that.
Is in the taxes?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep, that's been a consideration.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
Luckily
I
now
think-
that there's, more folks,
Yep.
more of us living there, so.
Yeah, I think it'll look
More
nice.
folks out.
Thank you.
Corinne?
Yeah, I thought it was great when we saw it before, and I think it's really gonna be a benefit, not only to you, but it's gonna look nice in the neighborhood, so,
Thank you.
no comments.
Chris?
I think for me, the biggest thing is when we do any of these, that the neighbors are all in concurrence, and you have the information that all the neighbors are in favor of this.
So they've been noticed, both for the Plan Commission and ZBA. Mailings have gone out to the immediate neighbors. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the ZBA packet included some signatures or some letters.
Mhm.
And I've certainly not had any contact before the pre-hearing. There were a couple that asked to see the plans, but no comments positive or negative to me. But I know in the packet of ZBA, certainly there was some support as well.
I just think as a matter of principle, if we do these, we
Certainly.
don't put them into a contentious situation.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I-
Yeah, they
we
all
absolutely
emailed
agree.
in letters of support, and the neighbor who would be closest to it, he called into the first meeting
He
last
did.
time.
Yeah, I do
And
recall
voiced
that.
his support.
I
Yep.
remember.
But I completely agree.
Thanks.
Then we entertain a motion.
I'll move approval with the finding of fact as written by, the finding of fact written here, and the conditions of approval as written by staff.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
Oh, of course. That's the way she goes.
This might have been an order of business.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm actually a construction underwriter, so it was really interesting to
Oh.
listen in.
Okay.
Come to
You're
any one
welcome
of these
to come to all our
meetings.
meetings.
I'll ask my boss if I
Oh.
can log those in.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Nancy's back, so she's gonna take over.
Thank you. New business number 7A. Public hearing on the request by Adams Outdoor Advertising for approval of a sign permit for an off-premise advertising sign at 400 East Broadway, case number S-024-2024. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tom Hickey. I'm here representing Adams Outdoor Advertising. Adams has submitted a sign permit application request for a digital off-premise advertising sign at Ahuska Park on the edge of the property. Adams understands that off-premise signs are prohibited in the city of Monona, but is asking for an exception. In your packet, as well as the staff report, you'll see kind of our full materials, but some of the reasons they're asking for the exception include that the parcel is designated as a parcel that would be suitable for a pylon sign according to the city's ordinance. The digital sign would not be visible from any parcels that are zoned for residential use. The sign will also not interfere with any park activity or anything like that, being where it's placed in towards the edge of the property. And we also feel that this parcel is suitable for this type of sign because of its surrounding uses being mostly commercial with Pier 37, as well as the Walmart, as well as just being on the Beltline corridor with other signs of similar size and type as well. All of this while also providing a supplemental revenue stream for the city, as well as the ability to advertise city events using the sign. To save some time, I don't want to go through every page of what you already see submitted in your packet, but I did want to touch on a little bit of our feedback from the Parks and Rec Board, as well as kind of the Parks Director, and specifically in relation to our landscaping plan. So we were in front of Parks Board in August as well as September, mostly talking about, seeing if the Parks Board would be comfortable with the sign being in the park, as well as talking about the landscaping. Because as you can see, there will be, Adams is proposing to remove roughly 100-foot by 300-foot section of vegetation that is on the park property, as well as dipping into the right-of-way. This vegetation removal would be necessary to, one, build the sign safely in the proposed placement, as well as create visibility for the sign from the Beltline. Now, touching a little bit on the landscaping plan. As you can see, we have met, with Parks Board twice, as well as visited on site with the Parks Director. And the feedback we've heard from them is that they are, one of the concerns about the vegetation removal was the increase in noise to the park. So in working with the Parks Director on that, we proposed vegetation that would help insulate some of that noise, some arborvitae, kind of reinforcing those berms between the two athletic fields. And then they've, wanted to replace the vegetation that would be eliminated there with kind of a low maintenance grass or something along those lines. But the Parks Board has ultimately recommended that Adams do a one-time payment to the Parks and Recreation Board so that they can do that landscaping and that they can kind of choose that vegetation and do it themselves. And that is the path Adams would prefer to take as far as the landscaping. Obviously, we are aware that part of this process is submitting a landscaping plan. So we did submit something that would kind of show the vegetation we discussed with the Parks and Rec Board, as well as the Parks Director. But ultimately, and it seems like the Parks Board would prefer kind of a one-time payment for that landscaping plan and vegetation replacement. With that, I guess I would take any other questions or any feedback.
Great, thank you. With that, I will close the public hearing, assuming there's no one else.
We do still have the individual on Zoom. I don't know if this is the item, if they would like to appear. User 4382.
User 4382. Are you just listening in tonight, or is there something you'd like to share?
They've stayed on mute, so.
Okay. We'll close the public hearing on request of, and move to number 7B, consideration of action on request by Adams Outdoor Advertising for approval of a sign permit for an off-premise advertising sign at 400 East Broadway, case number S-024-2024. Doug?
Thank you. The request this evening for a two-sided off-premise advertising sign billboard with digital displays near the southern boundary of Ahuska Park, 400 East Broadway, and this would be facing the Beltline Highway. With this, as mentioned, the applicant would propose the clearance of approximately 30,000 square feet of vegetation to allow for the sign. The proposal was supported by the Monona Parks and Rec Board unanimously at the September meeting. City sign code does not allow for off-premise advertising signs in any zoning district without a special exception, and the applicant has submitted materials requesting that special exception for consideration with this permit. The proposal itself is 672 square feet. It's 35 feet tall with two digital displays facing east and west, facing the Beltline Highway. And the property, 400 East Broadway, is zoned as part of the Community Design District, CDD. The applicant outlined sort of the feedback from the Parks Board, and we also have Alder DePula here, who is the Alder on Parks Board, so any details I'm sure he would be happy to go into, but sort of the details were included there in the staff report. During this process, planning staff has advised the applicant that the off-premise signs are not permitted, and if the special exception permit is the special exception permit must be requested, or an appeal made to the Zoning Board of Appeals should the Plan Commission deny the request. Concurrent with the sign application, the applicant did discuss a lease agreement with city leadership, 10-year lease, 10-year renewal, with the annual base rent and escalator, and that would be into the general fund, and there's a tentative agreement based upon approval of any sign permits, but contingent upon any sign permits certainly coming through. So as far as the design of the sign, 672 square feet, it's 48 feet by 14, 48 by 14 digital displays, 35 feet in height. As mentioned, this parcel is eligible for a pylon sign according to the pylon parcel sign map, and those would typically be limited to 30 feet, 30, in size or in height, as well as 200 square feet in size. The staff report did include the standards for changeable copy because, of course, this would be cycling through advertising images. That is regulated by state law in terms of the frequency of those, but just some language was included there about sort of the timing and things like that for the transitions. One other element to discuss here is that there is currently one other off-premise billboard, effectively a billboard sign within the city, which exists as a legal non-conforming sign. The sign is two-sided, 300 square feet, externally illuminated, and that is at the eastern edge of 925 East Broadway, facing east and west. This was approved in May of 1984 and is currently owned and operated by the applicant as well. There is the possibility the commission could discuss a possible swap or something like that between these two, given that ownership and the control of these would be by the same party. So the staff recommendation is discussion of the appropriateness of the proposed location, if the special exception is warranted, and certainly if there are concerns, discuss those with the applicant, may choose to approve, table, or deny the application. Should the commission choose to approve, there is language included here for the special exception, included the findings of fact, and there's also a possible denial as well included in the staff report with the finding of fact, whichever the commission chooses to appropriate. Thank you.
Brendan, do you want to start on this one?
I don't think it's an appropriate use of that location. That whole corridor, I know that when we talk about like duplicative use, et cetera, I don't know if that's just within the confines of our own municipality, but when I think about that corridor, especially once you get east of Stoughton, because I drive, down to Edgerton every day, there's already a lot of signs there. I don't really see a need or a use for one in this location. We went through everything with Topgolf and people being concerned about, illumination, et cetera. This certainly would be more of an issue than it was. So, no, I'm not interested in this being at this location.
Patrick? Would you
So-
like to speak about Parks and Rec?
Yep, so it was approved unanimously by Parks and Rec. We took a tour of the property as a group to look at the area where it will be, and it was very illustrative how it will not impact use of the park or even vision from the park for the most part. It's on the Beltline. The sign, and I think Mr. Hickey can corroborate, I think we discussed during the parks, as parks deliberated this, we discussed that the sign will adjust in intensity, right?
Correct, yes.
So
Outside light, it
the,
adjusts on its own.
yeah, and then the lumens that this produces, you know, when it's fully dark outside, I think it was explained to us, and you can corroborate, that it's not going to have much more impact than the streetlights that are on the Beltline.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
so we operate under state codes on brightness, and I believe I heard a little bit earlier tonight on something along those lines. I believe it's like 0.3 foot candles is the max. So we do operate under all state and federal guidelines when it comes to brightness on digital signs.
Gotcha. And again, I just want to reiterate that the Parks Committee, over 2 meetings, went back and forth over this and did approve this unanimously, based on the location, the positive impact that would occur with city finances. You know, because we're looking, I mean, it's not a plan commission issue, but to just talk about the meeting that we had, it's, you know, almost $1 million over 10 years to the general fund, which we all know that we're talking about a referendum right now. So, anyway, so I'm happy to answer any other questions regarding this, but no one on the Parks Committee had a issue, or direct or indirect, regarding the location of this particular sign. Mhm.
Rob?
Yeah, I was a little torn on this one, being that it was not permitted, seems like a quick decision, but I do respect the Parks Board and what they've done and looked on site, and I'm not gonna dispute whether they think it's a negative impact to park users. That combined with the pylon sign and it's not a purview, but the general fund contribution is an added bonus. So I'm a little torn, frankly. It's what to do, and I'm leave it at that for now.
Okay. John?
Thanks for the explanation from the park board, because I couldn't figure out how it got here.
Gotcha. Yep.
But I agree with Brandon.
Mhm.
I don't think this is inappropriate. I mean, a 30,000 square foot scar, no matter who can see it, seems a little too much for a park.
You know, it's on the side of the park, though, where there is no activity.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And no one sees it either, unless they're looking out their side window and they're driving.
You'll
on
see it from the belt line.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with this. I was actually thinking that this was a good spot for it, because when you think about what uses are around there, it's not like there are residences. There's some of the condos, perhaps, but they're already looking at Pier 37 and maybe, but I'm not, because I'm not sure how the view across there is, but it does seem like if we were going to have one, this seemed like a good spot, and I really appreciated the fact that it would provide benefit to the community in terms of advertising our events, because that's something that we're also looking to do, is like highlight the good things that we do here. So the fact that there was some willingness to advertise for our community, I thought that was a benefit. The fact that this is an area where pylon signs could go, I think makes this more appropriate as well. And working with the Parks Director to come up with a solution to screen that in a way that is appropriate takes away some of the other concerns that I might have. So it's an area of the park that's not being used, and I just think I was actually a little surprised that we just have like a, there shall be no electronic message signs, because it does seem like there are some uses or some instances where we might want to approve that. So I think providing that due cause, which I think you did, makes it easier to say yes to this. I did have a question though about the 8 seconds versus 10 seconds, because our ordinance says that it's not gonna change more than once every 10 seconds, but you had said there's a state law that says 8 seconds, so I don't know why our ordinances are not in line with the state.
Well, and I can certainly let the applicant address that too, but
Okay.
this was included more institutional informational signs and more sort of I would imagine the one for the high school on the drive, that's sort of school events and things
Oh,
like that. So
sure. Okay.
I'd say that probably different categories. It was more for a reference as to how we would regulate, but probably apples and oranges, honestly, if we were
Yeah.
comparing the two.
Yeah. And I
At
would-
least from the city perspective.
Yeah, okay.
I guess I would just add that 8 seconds is the industry standard when it comes to these signs.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, so.
I'm not really in favor of it. I'm with Rob, I'm torn. I mean, the first question I'll ask, well, first I'd make a statement. I think, well, no, first I'm gonna ask a question. Would we let someone else do this? Would we let someone else that's eligible for a pylon sign, hey, I can get $80,000 a month or a year for this, and so I'll take down my pylon sign and give away my advertising, I can put a billboard up. I mean, our sign code was no billboards, and that was for a reason. We didn't want that look for Monona. We just, as a community, said we don't want billboards for the look for people coming into Monona. So I understand the appeal, $80,000 a year. We had this issue here before, and we ended up turning it down. It would have been nice tonight to have that background of that discussion, the reasons. I mean, it was Adams, and there was going to be the same kind of sign. So I think at the very least, we ought to get that information for another meeting and look at it, and maybe get some more information from the people that are pro this sign. I feel like we're selling out a little bit, and I absolutely, positively would not ask them to trade a billboard for a billboard. This permit goes to the property owner, which is us. So what you're saying, oh, you private owner, I don't know who he or she is that owns that lot right now, we're gonna take away your income because we want it on our park. So we're gonna take away your sign permit and we're gonna give ourselves a sign permit instead. So sorry, you don't get that income anymore. That would, I could never, ever, ever vote for something like that. We can't do that. We simply can't. It's not Adams trading a sign, it's an owner, a private owner that has a grandfathered sign that they have a right to. So for me, that's completely 100% off the table. If we even considered this, we would have to wrap it with reasons why we did it and be willing to stand by that. So if somebody else with how many acres is Ahuska? Anybody recall? 20?
I can't recall.
Not that much, is it 15?
Yeah. It's not, it's more like 12, I think.
Okay, so anybody else with a 12-acre parcel, will we let them do this? I think we'd have a real problem with it. I really think we would. And now it's for us, and it's like, oh gosh, this would be great income for the city, and we can get some advertising. But I think we're talking out of both sides of our mouth when we do this. So I would propose that we at least could get, unless we want to take a definitive action tonight, get some background on it, some background on what was proposed before and why it was turned down, and the reasoning behind that. I was here when it happened. I just don't have a real strong memory about the final, if we actually had a final action or if they just let it go away because they knew it wasn't going to get approved at that point. My other comments would be, we planted those oaks back there probably 15 years ago, maybe a little more, when we rebuilt Ahuska, because we wanted to just take that area, leave it alone, make this little oak savanna, our own little oak savanna there. So if anything ever did happen, I'd be really careful about what happens there. I walked it. You show one oak tree, but there's another one down that bank, which I assume you'd want to take out too. And for the access, you'd have to slide the access over into where that berm is right now, take part of that berm out, get down there to stay away from the oak trees.
Correct.
I mean, there'd be issues like that that would be conditions if for some reason we decided to go ahead with this. But I think the greater issue is, right now, there doesn't seem to be an appetite for the planning commission to put this in, but I think at least we should review it with more information and probably allow the city, whoever, whether it's Patrick or somebody else, say, here's why we think this is appropriate. But it says in our sign code for a reason, the community said we don't want billboards up and down anywhere. We disallow it. Is it appropriate now? I'm with Rob. I need to be convinced.
I guess, I understand that once you have one, there's a possibility that other people would come forward and want to put in more. I'm not suggesting that I support that. So, however, it is the Beltline, and there are billboards up and down the Beltline. And I wouldn't say yes to something that's over by Yahara Terrace, for instance. That's a different, like right on the river there, that would be different. I just don't think that would be where I would say yes. So I just think there are different spots that would not be have a big impact on our community if we had a billboard or two.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's my perspective of it.
And I agree with Corinne. I wouldn't support citywide billboards by any measure. I wouldn't support willy-nilly placement of them. But if there's a place in Monona where one could be appropriate, it's this spot. I don't think there's anywhere else that would be as appropriate. That also makes sense from a financial perspective for the owner of the sign. And to just address the issue about we versus they and personal property, I mean, city property is public property, right? So city property is we, and that revenue goes to the general fund, which funds city operations. So just something to consider.
It's getting real cloudy we're considering financial implications, and that's outside of what we're doing here.
Sure, but this will go to the council regardless.
I'm just
Yes,
saying.
yes.
And it makes it difficult for me, because I know
I-
that,
well,
and I
yeah.
have that information.
If we say no, it'll go to city council?
I mean, the city council could still take it up, yeah.
I know that you said could take it up. You said it will go to city council.
Most likely it will.
Okay.
Which isn't to say that the city council is.
Would approve it either.
Would approve it either.
No.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I think, Corey, to your point, and to really several people's point, I think if we approved it, and if our intent was not to have billboards all over Monona, because we feel like this is appropriate site and other places wouldn't be, we would need to come up with some sort of finding of fact that would not open the floodgates, or even, forget a flood, that would not, because, there's no question that we have attractive commercial, largely commercial, at least at this point, property along the Beltline, and I'm sure that we would be entertaining a lot more proposals. And so we would, in my view, I would just see as needing to come up with a finding for fact that makes it okay in this case, but doesn't open the door to a lot of other billboards. So, and to Patrick's point about it going to council, part of the reason why it may go to council regardless, is because there's been 2 city committees that obviously will be weighing in on it. And one committee is obviously already voted unanimously in favor. So, you know, I can imagine that it would be the collective, the decisions of the 2 committees would be effectively, you know, end up more or less in an appeal kind of situation to the city council to sort of, even though, you know, signage is definitely the purview of this committee, so. And I'm very clear about that. I'm just saying, yeah.
I guess I have a question for the applicant. Is there something specific that you look for when you're placing a sign that makes this spot in particular?
So I would say with this spot, I mean, obviously anything on the belt line is going to be attractive for an outdoor advertising company. And looking up and down the belt line and kind of what's around it, I'd say something that makes this spot attractive too is when you're dealing with the belt line, you're dealing with a lot of different municipalities that run up to that belt line. So, you know, you have City of Madison, you go further down, you run into Middleton, and I think what made this spot attractive is being that the city owned it as well as its placement on the belt line. I think just made it an opportunity for at least a phone call and to see if you know, the city would be open to it. But yeah, I think when you're dealing with the traffic on the belt line and the limited amount of real estate on the belt line, any belt line location is what Adams is going to be looking for.
Okay.
So, do I have, this is obviously, this is a consideration of action item. Is there a recommendation or a motion that somebody would like to make regarding this item? Yes.
Well, like I mentioned before, I prefer more information.
Yeah.
Unless somebody here is real strongly, I want to turn it down tonight or I want to approve it tonight, I think we should get more information.
Okay.
And I think we should have some time, once we've had the discussions, first time we've ever talked about it together.
That's right.
You know, normally this would be a pre-hearing, we talk about all these things and then have a chance to ruminate over it, right?
Right.
So for me, unless somebody else would, I would say, I don't want to make the motion because we can't discuss it. You can't
Right.
discuss a motion to table, so that's why I want to discuss it before I would do that. But to me, I would like to, if it were up to me, I'd table it and then see if we can get some more information.
I'd agree with that. I'd be in favor of that.
Yep, me
Move to
too.
Table.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Well, it's tabled. Thank you.
Could I ask one follow-up question, I
Yeah.
guess? Is,
Okay.
as far as moving to table, is there anything else Adams could provide at the next meeting as far as further information that the commission would like to see?
That's a great question.
Not for me. I think it's pretty clear what it is, and I've visited the site and I started talking about your yeah. So I think those are minor issues that can be easily handled. I think the overall issue is it appropriate there? And I guess to go back to the earlier comment John made, any decision by the Plan Commission can be taken to the City Council.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the City Council is elected and we're appointed, so at the end of the day, the elected members of the community make the final decision. If somebody's aggrieved and they want to take it to the City Council. So.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for your
Yep.
time.
That takes us to number 8, reports of staff and commission members. Staff report.
Thank you. So I'll keep it brief this evening, but just there is some progress taking place at the base of development. Again, you may have noticed the site. There's new contractor on board. The fencing, I believe it was today, was updated with that new job trailer out there. So permits are in the process of being updated with that to begin coming through. And we are looking to, one of the conditions, it's a while ago now, but one of the conditions of the zoning permit approval was that this come through for further discussion of the condo units specifically. And there was a comment when the dental clinic came through most recently that come through 16 times. I think one of the discussions there is there a framework of sort of allowable uses that could be outlined? Of course, anything out of those boundaries would come back for consideration, but is there a discussion of that? And just generally, I think the operations of those condo units, there's 16 units there, how are they going to function? How is that going to move forward? So having that discussion with the applicant, I think is important. At this point, the building permit sort of has the box of those, but none of the build-outs for those specifically, and it would be for the apartments above. So I think this is a good juncture to have that discussion and to go from there. And I also did conduct the site visit for it was a request of staff at the last meeting about the car dealership on Femrite. And so I'm going to be in contact about both the conditions of the zoning permit, and that is both the vehicles, but also the landscaping as well. So just wanted to give that update. That's everything I have.
Did we approve the car deal?
This is the one at 915 Femrite, the former Treasure Mart space. There was a question about
Okay.
compliance with the conditions.
I thought you were talking about the phone yoga studio.
No.
Okay.
Yes, Chris approved it, led the effort to approve it at the last meeting.
Great. Excuse me, do we have any updates or discussion on diversity or sustainability?
Not from staff, no.
I do have one thing.
Yes.
And something that I've been doing at the end of our meetings recently, just for public information, is that I'm kind of highlighting kind of what our staff does a little bit. And I did that at the last council meeting, I did it at the Parks meeting. And so I just wanted to spend like 5 minutes asking Doug a couple questions about what he does, so the public knows. And Doug.
What doesn't he do?
Exactly. And so Doug, can you just give us a little bit of an overview about what your week looks like?
So it's, my role, it sort of includes zoning administrators, so sort of day-to-day there would be general zoning questions, building permit type questions as it relates to anything coming through. Most building permits, anything construction related certainly is going to need zoning sign-off, so I'll be looking at that. Anything coming through Plan Commission, there'll be the coordination of that from, does this need to go through signage requests, that kind of thing, all the way through to zoning permits, development projects, PIPs, those kind of things. Getting Plan Commission materials ready, compliance, site visits, and sort of working with the different inspectors for the certificate of occupancy, things like that. Working on the short-term rental implementation, both sort of the data gathering of that, but also the processing, the enforcement of that. I also oversee the code enforcement component of the city as well, working with the code enforcement officers. So complaints, items that come through there, just kind of tracking those. And then my other sort of side of the house is the economic development as well. So working on CDA, the Community Development Authority, we've got new districts that we just created. So working on those, any TIF proposals that come through, Topgolf, the Monona Pines is another one as well. So that's sort of the day-to-day components of it.
How many people are in your department?
I'm the only full-time staff member. We have a Thor Jepson, assistant planner. He is 25 hours a week, part-time. And then, of course, part-time building and part-time code enforcement.
Gotcha. And I mean, do you work 40 hours a week?
No.
I'm assuming that you work more than that.
That's correct, yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing that, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And again, I'm doing this just so if, whoever's listening or whoever's watching the streaming video, I mean, sometimes I've heard from constituents recently that, we can stand to make, a lot of changes based on the amount of employees that we have. And I just wanted to illustrate that we don't have a lot of employees. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Okay. Anything you want to share related to upcoming meetings?
So we do, expecting a meeting October 28th, couple signage items coming through, and then the 4111, 4113 Monona Drive apartment building is coming back through for consideration of the use of the development of that space. If you remember, the CSM was recently approved, and we have that in line to be considered as well.
Remind me which one that is?
That is just north of the Frank Ellis house.
Thank you.
I have a question. The Village Lanes development, is there
Yes.
anything?
There is continued discussion with the CDA. There would be a TIF component needed for that. So I would say the falling interest rates and things like that should be moving things in the right direction. So those conversations continue, but without that, it's going to be tough for that project to move forward. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Great. Any requests of Doug?
Just a heads up, when you look at the base, we did bid that when they redid it, and they were not aware at all about the extra parking lot, which is a requirement for the dental office.
Mhm.
And my understanding is that's going ahead, so just make sure they know they've got that little
Definitely.
parking lot to build.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? I will entertain a motion.
Move adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
They lost their contractor, or did they fire their contractor?
Who knows, really?
Oh, I was wondering.